The legend's final chapter begins. On the podium, a lone voice speaks, captivating a sea of spectators. High above, a red-haired sniper lines up. Her shot? Her weapon is state-of-the-art, complete with advanced optics and a whisper-quiet silencer. A young man steps onto the stage. Leonard Aon Vandersteen, of the United Technocracy of Eurasia, a member of the Joint Executive Council. Drones patrol the air, like metallic guardians. The sniper finds her target, takes a breath, and fires. In an instant, the young man collapses onto the stage, his lifeblood spilling out. Security swarms towards him. Subject eliminated. His friends rush to Leonard's side, their faces masks of pure horror. The girl screams, begging him to hold on. The scene is pure chaos. The young man tells Maria to call for an ambulance, his voice trembling. He grasps Leonard's hand. Leonard smiles faintly, saying he's relieved to pass on in the arms of those he loves. His soul begins to drift away. It seems their promise to change the world together will go unfulfilled. These crooks, instead of solving the world's problems, did nothing but drain the hope of those who trusted them. For years, they feasted on the people's spirit, corrupting the youth. They funneled the nation's vitality into endless wars and conquests, all to satisfy their insatiable greed. They never spared a thought for the countless orphans their conflicts created. He himself grew up in one of those crowded shelters every night. He'd clutch his empty stomach, his tears mixing with the cries of others until sleep finally took him. Lying there, he would ask himself, why serve those who have hurt us? Why should we fight for them, work for them, and pay them with our thanks? Aren't they the ones who should be helping us? Years flew by. He studied, he worked, and he mastered the art of deception. To defeat the monsters, he had to become one himself. But instead of preying on the weak, he swore an oath to protect them by devouring their predators. His childhood friends, Brutus and Maria, were the first to stand by his side. As time passed, his followers grew, drawn in by his powerful words and rising influence. Eventually, the corrupt invited him to join their ranks, believing he was cut from the same rotten cloth. By the time they recognized the true threat he posed, it was already too late. The veil of lies was finally torn away, and the people awakened. As a final, desperate move, the tyrants hired an assassin to silence him for good. There was no escaping it. Perhaps this was destiny all along. They believe this act will solidify their Ishem's control, but they are gravely mistaken. It will only accelerate their collapse, and from the ashes, a new order will rise. They believe they've won, but their victory is already ashes. With his death, every one of their dirty little secrets will be unleashed upon the world. Now, others will finish what he started. Leonard gave his thanks to Brutus and Maria for always believing in him. Maria, however, was in absolute shock, unable to process what just happened. Brutus tries to comfort her as ambulance workers carry Leonard's body away. And so, a new legend begins. As the sun rises, everyone gazes at the new dawn. The bullet from the sniper's rifle tears through Leonard's body, and the young man falls. Brutus and Maria kneel over the dying hero, whose blood now waters the seeds of a new era. Suddenly, a girl's eyes fly open, filled with terror. A voice tells her to wake up. It must have been a bad dream. Someone asks if she's okay. The girl is completely disoriented, still gripped by fear. She finds herself with other young people in a dimly lit cave. The grim conditions suggest a life of hardship. The boy beside her screams in fear as well. He has no idea how he got here. This has to be a nightmare in that same second. A fist connects squarely with his head. The blow was shockingly hard, scaring him into silence. The girl warns the young man. If he screams again, she'll hit him even harder. He needs to get a grip. The boy whimpers to his sister that he'll be quiet. But his mind is racing. This isn't his body. Who is he? Where is he? And why did he just call her his sister to many? Questions flooded his thoughts. The girl asks what's wrong, saying he's scaring her. Should she go get a healer? Something clicks in his mind. Her name is Gorza, and he's her brother. Herm, they're scarecrows, a type of goblinoid. Scarecrows, the weakest race in existence. Even goblins order them around. They might be intelligent, but that means very little. In this world, the young ones huddle together in fear. His tribe, caught in the crossfire of a war between the Jira goblins and the Kura kobolds. They were enslaved by the Jira and forced into backbreaking labor in the mines. Now, the tribe risks their lives daily, working for scraps in treacherous, magical caves. These caverns are infested with monsters, but also hold magic ore and treasure from the Age of Gods. Herm and his sister are at the bottom of the barrel, the lowest of the low, garbage among garbage. Herm realizes this isn't just a nightmare. It's his new, horrifying reality.
They can't possibly survive like this. Absolute hopelessness washes over him. Seeing the look in his eyes, the girl decides.
She'd better find a healer. She can't handle this on her own. But just then, the guy snaps out of it, insisting he's fine. It would be rude to bother the healers over nothing. His sister agrees, but warns him not to scream like that again, or he might just
give her a heart attack. She then tells him it's time to get up. They have work to do. Herm was completely lost.
Where they were headed, or why they even had to go. The young man's mind was still shrouded in a thick fog. Herm insisted he had been here long enough, but their merit was practically non-existent. He was on death's door when that tunnel came crashing down. It was only thanks to his sister
that she had enough credit to save his pathetic life. But the boy couldn't grasp a single word she was saying. What in the world was this?
Merit, she kept talking about, to keep the Sara born in line. The wardens used a brutal merit for work system. Even if a Gearborn somehow earned enough merit, they could only buy the most wretched, low-quality supplies. The young man finally decided he was wrong. This wasn't a nightmare at all. He had clearly died and been sent straight to hell. His sister, already standing at the cave's entrance, called out to her brother. One more time. What was he doing? Why wasn't he moving? Herm stood frozen, his eyes squeezed shut, trying to escape this waking dream. He convinced himself he would open his eyes, and it would all just vanish. Any second now. The young man counted to 3. His sister's voice shattered the silence again, calling him by his name. The boy snapped his eyes open. Nothing had changed. This was reality. This was his new, horrifying reality. And with that, he broke. The young man wept, unable to hold back the tears. His sister asked why he was crying, what was wrong with him. But the young man just screamed at her not to touch him. He refused to accept this fate. His body refused it. His mind rejected it. How did he end up in a place like this? The girl looked at her brother, completely bewildered. What had happened to him? He was supposed to protect her. And here he was, having a complete meltdown. She turned away, heartbroken. She decided then and there she had no one to rely on but herself. Seeing her pain, Herm managed to calm himself. He apologized to his sister, claiming he was just a little tired, that it would pass. He would get himself together. Suddenly, a massive shadow loomed over them. A menacing voice growled. Why are these brats still here? Are they tired of living? The girl looked up, not in shock, but with a familiar terror in her eyes. It was a feeling that was a constant companion for them. Before them stood a huge, green-skinned old goblin. He demanded to know when these gray rascals would finally pipe down. The goblin was absolutely furious. The girl instantly became obedient and quiet. She panicked, wondering if Healer Raj had heard. Her brother's screaming, that was the last thing they needed. The healer scoffed. Do these brats think my clinic is a hotel? Then maybe I should charge them accordingly. The old goblin demanded to know how much merit they had on them. He was fuming. The two of them tried to justify themselves. The girl tried to explain that her brother wasn't feeling well, but the young man stepped forward respectfully, calling the healer Master. The boy declared they were waiting for the healer, so they could express their deepest, most sincere gratitude. Without your legendary skill, he said, I would surely be dead. I am incredibly lucky that a master of your caliber would grace a lowly slave like me with your knowledge. The old goblin listened, his eyes practically bulging out of his head. He hadn't expected such a masterful display of bootlicking, and it calmed him right down. The healer let out a greasy grin. He figured the rocks must have knocked some common sense into the young man's head. That was commendable. The old goblin really liked being called Master Healer. The young man continued, We stayed to present the Master with this humble token of our appreciation. The young man held out a few worthless stones to the old goblin. The old goblin grunted. This is hardly enough, but it will do for now. Now get out of here. I have other things to attend to. The young man and his sister said they were eternally grateful to the great healer. The old goblin just said, If you have merit, you can come back. Otherwise, don't you dare waste my time. As they walked away, the girl finally caught up with him. She asked what that was all about. The young man told her it was simply an act of gratitude and submission. His sister retorted that he just kissed that old goblin's wrinkled green ass more than any. Priestess of a magician, the young man simply replied that if he didn't, they would lose everything. That is, unless the girl wants to. Go hungry this week. His sister had to agree with him, but her brother had never been so humiliated before. The young man wondered if maybe the rocks really had knocked some sense into him. making him act so differently? His sister agreed. Her brother seemed like a different person now. She decided to think about it later. Suddenly, a voice called out to Gorza and Herm. They turned to look back and Din saw a girl running towards them. She said she had finally found them. Gorza asked what was wrong, why the girl wasn't at work. She replied that Ko had sent her to warn them. Jurg and his buddies are out looking for Herm. The girl was terrified. Why would they want my brother? What's happened this time? Herm suddenly remembered Jurg's brother was the one who actually caused the collapse. But he wants to blame it all on me. Herm realized. The girl said it was true. The overseers threw him into the punishment cave, and he told Jurg that Herm had caused the whole thing. Gorza protested that it wasn't fair. Herm had almost died himself. The girl stated that none of that would matter if Jurg found him. She told them they had to go, that it wasn't safe for them to be seen. Herm wanted nothing more than to tell Jurg exactly what he thought of him. But for now, it was only in his dreams. The brother asked a simple question. If they made it home, they'd be safe. Right, his sister agreed. Their cave was practically next door to the overseers. No one in their right mind would dare cause trouble there. But just as the young man spoke, their path, the direct route was a guaranteed death trap. They had to find another way, and fast. His sister piped up. There is another way, but it's through the forbidden caves, a place no one dares to enter. I won't be alone, he shot back. I'll have you besides when you're in real trouble. You should always take the more interesting path. That's what my old teacher always said. What teacher? She scoffed. You've never mentioned any teacher before. He just shrugged it off. It doesn't matter. We need to go now. He urged his sister to lead the way into the shadows. They crept into the forbidden caves. But they were not alone. Unseen eyes tracked their every move. Herm whispered, Remind me again why this place is off limits. What went down here? His sister gulped. Monsters. They crawl up from the lower levels sometimes. We have to be on high alert. He noticed the usual light crystals were gone. Instead, the moss itself cast an eerie glow. A fascinating sight. If you could ignore the smell, the awful stench explained why they didn't use this stuff in the main caves. He then spotted boarded-up entrances. What's in there? Acid pits, she said with a shudder. We should stay far, far away from them. Wait, you've been here before, he asked. She nodded grimly. Once, with a work group. We were here to dump garbage in the pits. Suddenly, a strange sound cut through the silence. She froze, her eyes darting nervously into the darkness ahead. He stopped instantly, terrified. She clung to his arm. Herm! What is that? They both looked up into the gloom, and their jaws dropped in absolute horror. It was a sight beyond any nightmare they could have imagined. A colossal, blood-red monster. And was that a human leg dangling from its mouth? It was far too late to run. Their only chance was complete silence. The girl clamped a hand over her own mouth. He grabbed her hand. We have to get out of here. But of course, they were spectacularly unlucky. He took a step back and... crunch! An old bone shattered under his foot. The monster's head snapped in their direction. Her eyes widened in pure terror, her mind screaming one word. Run! But her feet were frozen to the spot. The beast's full attention was on them. A mangled limb was still peeking out of its mouth. Blood dripped from its rows of razor-sharp teeth. It was a truly grotesque sight. The monster turned and headed straight for them. They had just become its next meal. What do we do? Herm thought frantically. They didn't dare to move a muscle. They held their breath as its massive jaws loomed terrifyingly close. The boy squeezed his eyes shut. He didn't look up. He didn't even breathe. The foul stench of death and decay washed over him. But the monster didn't seem to notice. It must be blind, the young man realized. The main thing is not to make a sound. This thing hunts by sound or smell. Just then, the beast turned away, its attention caught by something else. This might be our only chance, the boy thought. They pressed themselves against the damp cave wall. Herm signaled for silence. The girl covered her mouth with both hands. Inch by painstaking inch, they began to retreat into the shadows. Miraculously, the monster didn't notice. Once they were a safe distance away, he whispered, I think we lost it. I thought we were finished, she gasped, relieved. Well, that was one heck of a detour, the young man said with a shaky laugh. I swear, I didn't know any other way, Borza insisted. That was the only workaround I knew. He figured it was an offshoot of the main tunnel. We should check it out. But then, his ear caught another foreign sound. Did you hear that? Herm asked his sister. He was sure he wasn't imagining it. He stopped and listened intently. She heard it 2 footsteps. Someone's coming. They don't know about the monster. She immediately ran to warn them.
Borza, stop, he yelled after her. But she was already peering around the corner, and her face went completely pale.
She deeply regretted coming here now. It was Jurg. He sneered down at her. Well, look what we have here. Where's your useless brother? Herm emerged from behind his sister. I'm right here, and I'm not hiding. Jurg grabbed Borza's arm, flanked by his cronies. He wasn't alone. Jurg pointed at Herm. Grab him, he ordered his companions. As they seized him, the young man smirked. You're going to regret this if you kill me. Jurg just laughed. Oh, really? And what's a little worm like you going to do? Send one of your guys up ahead, Herm challenged. But tell him to be quiet, if he wants to survive. Jurg told one of his thugs to check it out. See what's going on? And don't make a sound, Herm tried to explain. The cave-in wasn't my fault. He never finished his sentence. Jurg slammed a fist into the young man's chest with all his might. The air exploded from Herm's lungs, his eyes nearly popping out of his skull. Shut your mouth, Jurg roared. No one asked you. As soon as my man gets back, you're finished. Just then, his scout came scrambling back, his face a mask of pure terror. A monster centipede, it's gigantic. We have to get out of here right now. The old man with Jurg looked like he was about to have a heart attack. One of the assistants started frantically ripping out what little hair he had left, screaming about what they were supposed to do. He demanded to know the boss's plan. We have to warn everyone, or we'll all be blamed. But Herm just scoffed. Sure, he said. If you enjoy throwing away merit. Jurg shot him a confused look. So Herm explained there was absolutely no reason to hand over their prize to someone else. That centipede wasn't a threat. It was a walking treasure chest last time. A similar beast had yielded a massive reward. The old man recalled the servants of God getting nearly 200 merits for their so-called righteous deeds. Exactly, Herm declared. It's a walking sack of pure merit. Why let anyone else have it?
We can take that prize for ourselves, if we just handle this cleverly. But one of Jurg's lackeys shrieked in terror.
The dead don't need merit. We need to run. Jurg immediately snapped at him to shut his trap. Herm's point was just too good to ignore. Jurg wondered what else the clever brat had in mind. The centipede is blind, Herm stated confidently. It hunts entirely by sound.
Our weapons are useless against its armor. We couldn't even scratch it. He continued, laying out his strategy. So, my plan is simple.
We're going to lead it straight into the acid pits, Borza immediately protested. That thing moves like a freight train. There's no way we can outrun it. We won't run, her brother corrected. We'll spread out at equal distances. To draw its attention. It's a gamble, but it'll work. We'll use sound to guide it right into the trap. The old man smirked. A decent plan? But who's playing the part of the worm on the hook? Jurg pointed a finger straight at Herm. It's his brilliant idea, so he can be the bait. Non-negotiable, Borza cried out. My brother is still recovering from his last injury. If anything goes wrong, he won't be able to escape. She squared her shoulders. I'll go in his place. But the young man insisted he was fine. I'll be the bait, he then added. But I'll need help with the acid pit doors. He looked directly at Jurg for assistance. Jurg gave a smug grin. Of course, I should probably contribute something. Excellent, Herm said. Then we can move forward with the plan. That bag of merit is as good as ours. Later, his sister pulled him aside, her voice filled with worry.
What are you thinking that thing will tear you apart? The young man just smiled. I have a plan. But if I fail...
You need to be ready to run for your life. But how will I know if you've failed? She asked. Oh, you'll know, Herm replied. I'll start screaming my head off. That'll be your signal to get out of here. Elsewhere, the colossal centipede spat out the polished bones of its last meal. Its hunger was stirring again. It was time to hunt. Herm gathered the team to finalize the details. When the monster gets close, you throw a bone to lead it by sound. He then pointed to the youngest member. Sav, you'll enter the tunnel first. And get its attention. Sav paled instantly. Why me? I'm the youngest, I don't want to be bait. Jurg sneered. Shut up and do what you're told. You're always bragging about being the fastest. Now's your chance to prove it.
Once you throw the bone, you run straight for the glowing moss. Don't panic. Remember, the beast is blind. It can't see you.
If it gets near, freeze completely. Don't even breathe, Sav muttered sarcastically. Right. Stand there like a statue and just stop breathing. I'm sure it won't notice me. And make sure you stand right by the glowing moss, Herm instructed. That way, the rest of us can see you. Jurg, you'll position yourself by the large glowing crystal near the turn. Once I'm in position, we'll throw open the doors and bait it inside. I'll slip out, and we slam the gate shut. Jurg nodded. Not a bad plan at all. We'll stick to it. No screw-ups? Herm looked Jurg dead in the eye. Remember, I need your help. I can't move that door alone. With the plan set, the young men moved into position. Sav crept forward, his heart pounding in his chest. The monster twitched, its senses trying to pinpoint its next meal. It sensed movement nearby and began to slither forward. Sav spun around and bolted. Pure terror etched on his face as a scream ripped from his throat. It was the perfect lure. The beast charged toward the sound. Sav scrambled for a bone, praying that Herm was right. And the centipede truly was blind. He was running out of time. In his panic, he snatched up a human skull.
There was no time for a better option. With all his might, he hurled the skull deep into the cavern.
The colossal nightmare instantly changed direction, chasing the sound. So far, the plan was flawless. Sav collapsed to his knees. Tears of fear streamed down his face, but he stayed silent. The creature thundered past him without a second glance. Jurg listened, a smirk on his face. The sounds were getting closer. It had passed Gorza, and was heading towards Herm. It was time to signal. Jurg raised his hand, making sure he was visible in the crystal's light. But there was a wicked glint in his eye. He imagined Herm waving goodbye. After all, it was Herm's fault his brother had been whipped. He would never forgive him for that. Jurg picked up a bone. He chuckled darkly to himself. What a pity for his little sister. Who's going to look after her now? And with that, he tossed the bone right next to the unsuspecting young man. The clatter echoed in the silence. The centipede's head snapped towards the sound instantly, warped and twisted, changing its entire trajectory. This was not part of the plan. Herm, catch! Jurg yelled, hurling the skull right at him. The skull clattered to the ground, a brand new noise from a brand new direction. Suddenly, Herm was the main attraction. The centipede's horrifying maw opened. Turning its full attention on him, the young man realized he'd been played. Jurg had set him up. Jurg's brilliant plan flashed through his mind. Get them both in the cave, then slam the door. The monster would deal with the kid, and the acid. Vapors would finish off the monster. Jurg was practically glowing with self-satisfaction. This was revenge, served cold. He just hoped his plan would actually work. But wait, why wasn't the centipede moving? It just stopped near him, and the boy was paralyzed with fear. In a flash of inspiration, Herm launched a skull at the centipede, scoring a direct hit on its tooth. The beast was furious, its face a mask of pure rage. Jurg, run faster, Herm yelled. We'll lure it into the cave. We can do this. With that, the beast charged.
After the young man, leaving no time to spare. The centipede's nightmarish mouth was wide open. Herm screamed,
pointing Jurg towards a hiding spot. He himself stood firm, right beside the open door to the acid pit. The centipede dashed, right past him. The young man didn't flinch, didn't even breathe, feeling the wind from the monster's charge whip past his face. As the centipede vanished through the doorway, Herm slammed the heavy door shut with the speed of a lightning strike. The door boomed closed, and the young man immediately threw the bolt, sealing its fate from the inside. That was way too close. He made a mental note in his next life. He was definitely coming up with better plans. The young man finally let out a massive sigh of relief. Just then, the others came running. Borza saw her brother and cried, "Thank God, you're all right." But Sav immediately asked, "Where's Jurg?" "What happened to him?" Herm, with a somber face, replied, "I'm so sorry." Jurg made a sound. The centipede went right for him. "We both ran inside," he continued. "But the centipede, it got Jurg." With a heavy heart, he'd had to lock them both in. The old man praised his name. "May the gods honor your bravery," he cried. "It's a tragedy. The boss was a good friend." But Herm shook his head.
I don't need any fame. Tell everyone that Jurg killed the monster. Honor his final, brave act, the old
man, with tears streaming down his face, said Herm was a truly good man, and they would never forget his sacrifice. "It's time for my sister and I to leave," Herm announced. The old man blessed them. "May the gods' blessings be with you always." Once they were alone, Borza asked her brother, "Is it really true Jurg decided to sacrifice himself?" "What really happened?" Herm shrugged. "That's pretty. Much the gist of it. Turns out the centipede hunts by scent, not just sound." The girl's eyes narrowed. Jurg got exactly what he deserved. "Brother!" Borza called out, her voice sharp. She had already figured it all out. The girl looked at him with eyes that saw right through the lie. "What's wrong?" he asked. His sister simply told him to eat. But on his plate was something unusual. The young man had no idea what it was even called. The boy's face twisted in disgust. He couldn't touch it. He tried to explain to his sister that he just couldn't eat it. But she just smiled sweetly. "It's your favorite dish, brother. You can't refuse." She even saved the head, especially for him. The guy grimaced at his plate. I don't want it. I'm just not hungry right now. Her sweet expression vanished. With a steely gaze, she slammed her knife into the table and ordered him. Eat. He had no choice. The young man felt his stomach churn. He was terrified he was about to vomit. Herm told his sister, "Okay, I'll try it." He barely touched it with his tongue, but that was more than enough. His gag reflex went into overdrive. The young man scrambled for the trash can and threw up everything. There was no stopping it. The girl stared at her brother, her suspicions confirmed. He looked back at his sister, wanting to apologize, understanding the storm of emotions she must be feeling. But Borza's face was a mask of cold fury. "I knew it," she whispered. "I knew it after the acid pits." She pointed her knife straight at his heart, her hand trembling with rage. "Who are you?" she demanded. "You're not Herm. You're a demon." The young man threw his hands up in surrender. "I'm not a demon," he pleaded. "Sister, please, put the knife down. I can prove it to you, right now." Borza's eyes narrowed. "Oh, really, I'm listening. What exactly are you going to prove?" The boy's mind raced, desperately searching for an answer that would calm her down. And then, he had it. "Marin powder," he blurted out. The girl just stared at him, confused. "What are you talking about? Stop speaking in riddles." He repeated himself. "Marin powder. I'll mix it with water, just like at the holy ceremony last year, and I'll drink it." Demons hate that stuff. If I burst into flames after drinking it, it means your little brother will come back to you, albeit slightly charred. And if that doesn't happen, the young man added with a nervous grin, then I'm your real brother. That's pretty good proof, right? Herm asked. "So, what do you say to a little test?" The girl looked at him, her face a perfect picture of disbelief. I don't know, just in case." Gorza kept the knife pointed steadily. Her brother insisted they had a deal, and that he was going to find the holy powder. And so, he poured the strange liquid into a glass. He declared that once he drank it, she would have to believe he wasn't a demon. But Gorza wasn't convinced, threatening him with the blade. "Less talking, more doing," she snapped. As he drank the liquid, he really hoped that all this demon-exorcising powder and holy nonsense were just old superstitions. And if they weren't, well, maybe he'd just return to his old body. After chugging the whole glass, his eyes suddenly rolled back. He let out a strangled cry as his face turned a sickly gray. Gorza stared in horror. "Brother, what's happening? Is the demon coming out of him?" But then, he took a shaky breath and gasped. "Wow, that was disgusting. How could you even drink that?" Gorza immediately started whacking him on the back, yelling that he was a complete fool. He had scared the life out of her. "Don't you ever do that again?" He just grinned. "You called me Herm. That means you believe I'm not a demon, right?" That seemed to reassure him. "You're the real Herm," she conceded. "I believe you." "About that," he began. "I'm not exactly Herm. I'm a Tanak, a dreamer of worlds," he said with a wink. His sister deadpanned. "So you chose the laziest of all the gods?" "Tachi, the god of sloth." "Well, I'm a lazy bum myself, so it fits," he joked. His sister decided to just drop it for now. "Fine, you're my real brother. I believe you. But why are you acting so strange since you recovered? You seem like a different person. I want the truth." The young man paused. His father had warned him about something like this. This might be his only chance to finally understand what had actually happened to him. The young man confessed, "I have memories from another life, and they feel completely real. In fact, I still don't fully understand it myself. My body felt like it was sinking into a raging river. My soul was carried far, far away. Then, at some point, I saw it. A shining ball of light. I instinctively reached for it. The next thing I knew, I woke up," he finished, "with a splitting headache, dizziness, and a flood of new memories. That's all I know, I swear it." His sister cried out, her eyes wide with a totally different kind of horror. "Don't you realize what this means?" Herm was baffled. "What, you think I'm a god reborn?" "Into the body of a mortal." "Yes," she declared cheerfully, her mood flipping on a dime. "It's been ages since any of them showed up, especially not among the nobodies in Greyborough." Gorza stared at her brother with renewed intensity. She needed an answer that would satisfy her wild imagination. "So, can you confirm any superpowers?" Herm sighed sadly. "I have none of that. I'm just a regular guy." But his sister was not the least bit discouraged. "Then maybe you're a lost soul," she insisted, refusing to be disappointed. Lost souls are beings with no special abilities, but they carry memories from a past life. They rarely become famous, but maybe his memories were special. What if they were from a legendary artisan or a natural-born leader? "Yeah, maybe," he said quietly, then apologized for upsetting her. "Upsetting me?" Gorza scoffed. Thank the gods the last thing we need is another so-called chosen one. Then her voice dropped. But you can never tell anyone about this. If others find out you have treasure memories, can you imagine what they'd do to you? He grimaced. They'd torture me first, then kill me, or send me off for experimentation. His sister shrieked, "Stop saying things like that, and if you do get extraordinary powers, you must never show them."
You have to promise me, he tried to reassure her. Don't worry, I have no plans to lose my arms and legs.
I'm quite attached to them. Gorza covered her ears with her hands, not wanting to hear anymore. If anyone finds out, I have no idea what we'll do. The young man's expression turned serious, showing he finally understood. I don't know either, he admitted. That's why I haven't said anything to you until now. I just didn't want you to worry. The girl's eyes softened as she nodded. I understand. Life just keeps getting more complicated. Then her curiosity sparked again. So what were your memories about you sound like you were a nobleman? Can you tell me anything? I wasn't a nobleman, he said. I have the memories of a guy from another world entirely. He was a rebel, Herm explained. Someone who went against the system to change society for the better. Gorza was instantly hooked.
What happened to him? She asked, leaning forward. She had to hear how the story ended. Herm's face grew dark.
That young man made a mistake, a fatal one. He was murdered by the very nobles he opposed. It was a despicable assassination. His sister gasped, completely gripped by the tragedy. She hung on his every word. Then a sudden terror crossed her face. Brother, you're not going to try something like that in our world, are you? He just winked at her. I'm not an idiot. I won't make someone else's mistakes. But his sister's expression was a cocktail of surprise, disbelief, and desperate pleading. In that moment, the young man understood everything. The young man explained that his sister needed no words to understand him. Herm added that he wasn't some knight in shining armor with a sharp sword. He had no army, no mages. So for now, he'd play a different game. Puzzled, the girl turned to her brother. Mages. What are mages? She'd never heard that word before. Her brother tried to sound smart. They're like shamans, but way more organized, less spirit talk, more magical energy. Gorza was seriously impressed. He spoke with such confidence, as if he knew everything about magic. But then, a wave of fear washed over her. Wait a minute. Her brother doesn't actually know anything about magic, does he? He wouldn't need that kind of dangerous knowledge. He quickly tried to reassure her, saying she couldn't feel any magic on him, right? The girl confirmed she couldn't, sighing in relief. The young man then told her to stop stressing about things she didn't understand. Besides, if he was secretly a magic user, she would have sensed it ages ago. That's why they were kept here, after all. Scarecrows can sense magic, he declared confidently. It's in our blood, that's what makes us so useful to everyone else. He sounded so convincing. She didn't really get it. But if her brother said so, it must be true. You're right, she agreed. Turning back to him, she looked him straight in the eyes, needing one more piece of assurance. Make me a promise, Gorza said, her voice dead serious. A very, very important one. The boy wondered what she could possibly want now. He'd been totally honest with her. His sister looked at him pleadingly. Promise me you'll never change. Please, this is everything to me. He pulled her into a tight hug. The warmth of a kindred spirit washed over her. He made her a solemn vow. No matter what happened, he would be her brother forever. He would always protect her. Suddenly, the young man's eyes shot open. His head was bandaged. He squinted, the light blindingly bright. What's going on? Where am I? A familiar voice warned him to be quiet and not move so fast. The bullet went right through your chest, Brutus said. Your condition is critical. The young man's eyes focused on Brutus. Brutus, is that really you? He asked, his voice weak.
Who else would it be? Brutus retorted. Did you lose your memory along with all that blood? The boy struggled to sit up, clutching his head. Was it all just a dream?
He seemed lost in thought. Maria leaned in. What did you dream about? Why does it have you so worried? The young man shook his head. You wouldn't believe me. I dreamt of monsters. Of another life. A life where I had become a slave. He continued, his voice strained. And in that dream, I wasn't human, Brutus scoffed. That sounds like absolute nonsense. Probably just a side effect of the injury. It'll pass. The young man sank back onto the bed. Yeah, I know. Help me up, he asked. And as he did, he glanced down at his own hands. A jolt of pure terror shot through him. His hands were a deathly gray color, exactly like in the dream. He couldn't make sense of anything. It's just a dream, he muttered, trying to calm his racing heart. Get a grip. Brutus looked at him with pity. There was nothing we could do. I'm sorry. As the guy stood up, he said quietly, I missed you guys. Maria's face softened. We missed you too, in this new life. You will reach even greater heights. You have to promise me. The young man nodded firmly. I promise. You can count on me. But he still looked deeply troubled. His friends urged him on. You're going to make a difference in this world. That's not even a question, he replied, a spark of his old self returning. You know better than anyone I'm about to shake this world to its core. As he finally came to his senses, his friends smiled. We'll see each other again soon, they said. And then they began to dissolve in the strangest way. Brutus pointed with his finger. For now, he'll be keeping you company. He pointed towards a chair where the young man from his dream was sitting, the very same one. And this version was terrifyingly real. Unlike the friends who had just vanished, the two of them just stared at each other.
A silent, unnerving study. The main character finally pushed himself up. You're Herm, aren't you? He asked. Couldn't they have left literally anyone else?
In a blink, the chair was empty. Herm was now standing right beside the headboard of the bed. Hey, I have feelings too, you know, Herm said, looking genuinely hurt. The young man was taken aback. So you didn't disappear? Was none of it a dream, or am I still dreaming? Herm sighed. My body is real. And I am real. The young man apologized. Look, I know someone else is supposed to be in charge of this body. You should probably get some rest. Herm got defensive. This is my body, I don't want to leave it. The young man's voice was calm. I will take good care of it, he promised. And you know I'm the only one who can truly change your life. Herm's shoulders slumped. I know. It's probably true, he admitted sadly, but that doesn't make it easy to accept. The young man offered a comforting word. Don't be discouraged. You'll be remembered for a long, long time. Herm looked up. Can you do something for me, then?
Always be honest with my sister, he pleaded. I don't ever want to see her suffer. The young man nodded. I've never had a sister.
But I'll take care of her as if she were my own. He made one last promise. I'll make this world a better place for you. Herm, the best place. For you and your sister. You'll both be happy here. A small, bittersweet smile appeared on Herm's face. In that case, I'll trust you. Leonard offered his thanks, and Herm returned the nod. As dawn broke over the eastern mountains, the youths watched the sunrise, its light reflected in their eyes, a symbol for the birth of a new world. Herm simply listened, apart from the chatter. Just then, his sister appeared, a playful smirk on her face. She couldn't believe her brother was up before her. He'd already cleaned up and made breakfast. She had to ask, were you a servant in a past life? Herm told her to knock it off with the jokes. She just giggled, promising to drop it. For now. Suddenly, a voice boomed out Herm's name. Everyone turned, their eyes wide with surprise. They knew that voice. But what was he doing here? An old goblin approached, muttering that he thought the kid was dead.
That's news to me, Herm quipped, hoping that day wasn't coming anytime soon. His sister then started filling in Old Man Coot
on the insane events from the day before, especially what went down with Jurg from the third group. Herm finally recognized him. Old Man Cole, the minder, a friend of their father's. He'd watched over them ever since.
Their parents died in the heaving attack 2 years ago. It was strange seeing an overseer getting along so well. With the slaves he managed. Guess there are still good people in this rotten world? The old man asked if Herm had really helped defeat
the giant centipede. I just run faster than it, Herm replied coolly. Old Cole let out a hearty laugh. That's Herm for you. Nobody in this world runs faster than that boy. Cole was just relieved it wasn't anything serious. He couldn't afford to waste. A high-merit worker. Besides, there was a mountain of work to do. The old man announced a job for Gorza at the mushroom farm. Later, the workers stood in line for their assignments. Armed guards watched over them, the area lit by glowing crystals. One worker sneered. He's got no merit, but at least he has a sister. The words had barely left his mouth before his target snatched him by the collar and slammed his face straight into the dirt. Blood instantly began to pool beneath him. His attacker growled a stern warning. We don't talk about the girls. We don't sell them. We don't buy them. The man on the ground scrambled to apologize. A third guy stepped in, telling him to let the punk go. If he was seriously injured, the overseers would start asking questions. The two exchanged a look, an understanding passing between them. The loudmouth was left on his knees, hunched over, he's coughing up blood from the brutal lesson he'd just learned. The one who'd defended the girl's honor gave him a dark warning. Next time, I'll feed you to the hyenas. Another worker explained that the boss is fiercely protective of the working girls. You see, the boss's father died young. His mother had to work herself to the bone just to support the family. Someone asked what happened to her. She died, too. The black spots had appeared on her skin, a disease that could have been cured, but the treatment cost a fortune. While the boss desperately scraped together the credits, his mother's clients abandoned her. And those scum, the the man said with pure rage, would never admit to taking advantage of her while she was dying. The message was clear. The boss takes this topic dead seriously, and it's best for everyone to remember that.
Someone broke up the tension, warning that they couldn't afford to lose more men to Virga's crew. The lieutenant was asked if he'd explained.
The rules to the new guys. I did, he confirmed. He told them they could steal and still expect protection.
But touching the girls is absolutely forbidden. Still, they were men. And sometimes, they think with the wrong head.
The boss declared they didn't need people like that. They could just hand them over to Virga. But his lieutenant urged him to calm down. No men, no team. Their crew was already smaller than Virga's. Just then, the guy pointed out that the boss's favorite little bug had returned. A small boy was surrounded by a group of thugs. Their eyes sized him up, practically dripping with disdain. The lieutenant chuckled. That kid's got guts. I still don't get why you like him so much, boss. The boss watched with a complicated expression, feeling a pang of pity. The boy looked so small, so utterly defenseless. He looked like a twig next to the brutes towering over him. He seemed to have no strength at all. These three often humiliated and robbed him, and he was powerless to stop it. The sight sparked a memory in the boss's mind. Once, he saw three thugs corner a young kid who was just walking home with groceries. The kid was just a boy back then, absolutely terrified. The lowlifes brandished their weapons, intending to steal his food and leave the kid with nothing. The boy shrank back in fear, clutching the food to his chest. He squeezed his eyes shut as tears streamed down his face. But then, a sudden noise made him peek open one eye. He then opened both, unable to believe what he was seeing.
A lone figure had just given those three a serious beatdown, and was now holding out a hand to him.
The boy couldn't believe his eyes. The danger was gone, so there really was good left in this world. But, as the saying goes, no good deed goes unpunished. The day he helped Vite was the day he truly understood the meaning of those words.
Posing as brothers, they eyed the dozing guard. With a practiced flick, the boy snatched the keys.
Mission accomplished. With their stolen groceries, the satisfied duo made a quick getaway.
They feasted like kings on their pilfered meal. But sooner or later, the free lunch buffet always closes.
Their mandatory military service came knocking an annual expedition to cleanse the deepest levels of monsters. Our main character, along with his brother Vite, was placed in the vanguard. He and his comrades fought on the front lines. Side by side, they became legends of courage. The goblins expected easy prey, but these boys were anything but. They pushed themselves day and night, clawing their way out of that hellhole alive. The young warriors had won. They cleared a path to freedom. A genuine light at the end of the tunnel sparked hope in their weary souls. Faith returned to their eyes. Stepping out into the open, they saw real green, real vegetation. The sun felt glorious. The warriors desperately needed a break. They began scouting for a place to set up camp. Once settled, they were split into two teams. One group was sent back into the deepest part of the level. Ufo was sent to a nearby lake. Virgo was assigned to the far side of the cave. Since they were headed to the most dangerous zone, Vite asked to go with Ol. The young men said their goodbyes, never knowing when they'd see each other again. He just wanted his little brother to be safe, so he happily agreed to the request. But their departure was cut short by a brutal ambush.
A swarm of monsters descended upon them. They had to fight their way back to camp in a desperate retreat.
Many fell, their bodies left behind forever. There were painfully few survivors. The young man led his group out with minimal casualties. On the way, they stumbled upon another squad's aftermath. The scene was a massacre. The enemy had shown no mercy. A warrior's throat was slit wide open. It was Ol's squad, completely and utterly butchered.
And of Vite, there was no sign. One of the survivors showed him something he'd found. A strange trail leading into a marshy thicket. A cold rage began to boil inside him. He didn't care who it was, who had taken his brother. He was going to get him back. Following the trail, one of his squad mates found a body. A young man, lying face down in a pool of his own blood.
He showed no signs of life. The hero scanned the area. This screamed ambush. A sudden noise in the distance confirmed his fears. His instincts were spot on. Fury surged through him. He'd been lured into a trap. They were outnumbered 2-1. Their opponents were heavily armed and perfectly prepared for this. The entire unit was surrounded. There was no escape. But the men in his squad were seasoned fighters. They formed a tight defensive perimeter.
Steel met claw in a brutal, bloody clash. The battle was a maelstrom of violence and fury.
Victory felt certain. He had absolute faith in his squad. After all, they may be outnumbered, but they had the better position. The young man was prepared to fight to the very last breath. His own life meant nothing. He had to get his men out of this. But then, he felt something terribly wrong with his own body. His weapon slipped from his grasp. He collapsed to one knee. A searing pain ripped through his side. The blade that stabbed him was held by Vite. He'd been a blind, trusting fool. It was all a setup. His squad held their defensive line, reeling from the betrayal. But they weren't about to give up. One soldier leaped over his comrades, launching his spear at the enemy. He would fight to the bitter end. Even without weapons, they would tear their foes apart with their bare hands. But the enemy was cunning. They were clearly plotting something more. Everyone wanted to avoid more casualties. Veet's eyes were clouded with pure hatred. He was about to do something despicable. The warrior spotted it first, shouting a warning to his comrades. Our hero was on one knee, clutching his bleeding side. Veet pressed a cold knife against his throat.
"Stop resisting," Veit screamed. "If you value your commander's life." The blade dug deeper into the young man's neck. Torn, the loyal warriors lowered their weapons. Their commander's life was on the line. The young man just had to ask.
Veet, why? Veet sneered. Forgive me, Rock, after following you around, I realized my life was going nowhere. And then Vera made me an offer I just couldn't refuse. We were brothers, Veet, Rock choked out. How could you? I always took care of you. Veet's face twisted with rage. You really believe that nonsense, brothers? He remembered the scene all too well. Rock surrounded by admirers, enjoying the best food, while Veet watched from the sidelines, completely alone. Power, friends, women. It all came so easily to Rock. Veet was left to rot in his brother's massive shadow. And then it hit him. He possessed one truly valuable thing, something that not everyone had access to. It was his brother's absolute trust. That's when Veet decided to cash it in. And right on cue, the offer came. An offer he simply couldn't refuse. Don't worry, Veet whispered into Rock's ear. I'll be sure to tell your sister how you died saving us all.
He pictured her gratitude, and how her gorgeous body would thank him personally for his sacrifice.
Just as he was lost in his fantasy, someone approached. It was Verga. Master, Veit said, looking up.
Only an idiot brags to an enemy who's still breathing, Verga hissed. Enough talk, Veit snapped back. Let's just finish him.
His master should be the one to land the final blow. But Verga just chuckled. A great warrior, killed by a traitor. Now that's poetic. I couldn't agree more. Veet raised his knife over Rock's chest. I'll be a good friend, he sneered. I'll take great care of everything you leave behind. But a fire still burned in Rock's eyes. He roared, grabbing his axe with his last ounce of strength. In a flash of steel, the axe swung true. The warrior's blade sliced clean through both of Veit's treacherous hands. The young man stared in horror at his bleeding stumps. Rock rose to his full, menacing height. I'll deal with you later, he growled. I have other matters to attend to.
Boss, his squad roared. What are your orders? Rock was a storm of pure fury, ready to destroy every last enemy.
Verga, Rock bellowed. He threw his own troops to the wolves and fled like the coward he is.
Panic erupted in the enemy ranks. Without their commander, they were nothing. Their squad completely fell apart.
Verga was gone, and his men scattered like roaches. Rock's unit stood victorious. Though wounded, their commander had not let them fall. Rock grabbed the shrieking Veet and slung him over his shoulder.
Please, spare me, the boy begged. They forced me. They threatened to kill everyone if I didn't do it.
Rock's voice was ice. Then you should have cut your own throat instead. I'm saying goodbye, Veet, Rock said coldly. Better luck in your next life. Veet's face went pale. What? What do you mean by that? A strange chittering sound echoed around them, the kind of sound insects make. But it was loud. Impossibly loud. Help me, Veit screamed. Don't leave me here. But Rock was cold-blooded and ruthless. He would not forgive this betrayal. Mercy comes at a high price, Rock said, his voice hollow. You taught me that, and I won't make that mistake again. At that moment, something inside him shattered. The old Rock was gone forever. Meanwhile, the young man stood before 3 local hooligans. They eyed him like wolves. Boss, what do we do about this guy?
We can't let Verga's trash do whatever they want in our territory. The boss just grunted. Leave him alone.
Some people only learn through pain, he sneered. Let's teach him a language he'll understand. The thug puffed out his chest and sputtered. Hey, kid, what do you think you're doing here? The young man just stood there, his fist clenched tightly. He calmly stared down his opponent. The big, bald man's face turned red. Hey, are you deaf? I asked you a question. His words were met with absolute silence. Just then, his crony pulled him aside. Wait a second, he whispered. I think that's the kid they call Herm, Gorza's brother. The very same Gorza who told Verga to shove it. At the mention of his sister, a dangerous light flared in the young man's eyes. The bald giant saw the flicker of anger and grinned. He'd found a weak spot. Time to poke it? I heard you're the reason the tunnel collapsed, he taunted. Maybe a rock scrambled your brain, because you're not thinking straight. I guess you only understand when someone yells at you, Baldy roared. Get the hell out of here, Herm! I'm not going to say it again. Herm's voice was dangerously low. What if I don't go anywhere? This is my business.
In that case, the bald man bellowed, I'll just have to cut you into little. He never finished his threat. There was a flash of silver. Herm's knife was already in his hand. Blood exploded from the big man's throat.
He grabbed at the gushing wound, his eyes rolling back. All he could manage was a pathetic, gurgling wheeze. Pro tip, never expose your neck to an enemy, Herm said coldly. Remember my words. They might just help you in your next life. The other two were frozen in terror. He killed him. He actually killed Var. It was unbelievable. Baldy collapsed to the ground in a pool of his own blood. Herm turned his icy gaze on the two survivors. Yes, he stated calmly. I killed him. You have no idea what you've just done, one of them shrieked. Oh, I understand perfectly, Herm replied. I just got into Verga's business and killed one of his men. So now I'm a marked man. And now, he said, you two are going to answer my question. They were so scared they looked like they might wet themselves. They would do anything he said, as long as they weren't next. Am I really the only one with a target on my back? The young man asked. Aren't we all targets? Aren't we all victims here? We are oppressed, humiliated, forced to fight each other over territory. But we are one people, we are all Greyborn. So why? Why are we living like slaves? The question hung heavy in the air, but he didn't wait for an answer. He answered it himself. We are slaves. Because we allow it. Because of spineless thugs like these two, everyone suffers. Their friends, their families, their entire lives are just an endless cycle of misery. Herm roared, This can't go on. We won't take it anymore. Those who agree, join me now. We will stand together and fight for our freedom. Who here is ready to truly live, not just exist? The young man paused. He had a point, a spark of truth in his fiery words. Why hadn't they ever considered it? The boss just covered his face, groaning. He'd heard this kind of heroic speech before. His warrior, however, seemed genuinely intrigued. The seeds of rebellion began to sprout. Even the bald man's lackeys thought, Herm might be right. The old-timers and others began to shout, agreeing with the young man. Enough is enough. We're tired of this tyranny. We will not be slaves. Another young man yelled, Get the hell out, and hurled a rock at Varg's men. Go torment someone else and rot in hell. Leave us alone. But one of the goons raised a gleaming knife, silencing the crowd. Stop right there, the thug sneered. You think just because this kid can talk tough, you can take us on? You're dead wrong. Nobody controls Varg's men. If anyone here feels brave, the warrior chimed in, cracking his knuckles. Why don't you step up? Let's see what you're really made of. Just like that, the young man dropped his stone, his newfound courage, vanished into thin air. The old man suddenly forgot about fighting for his rights, and the crowd's energy fizzled out completely. The warrior smirked. That's what I thought. You're all talk. A pathetic bunch of cowards. Now get back to work before I get angry. Herm was left standing alone, his fists clenched in fury. His revolution lasted all of 5 minutes. He stood defiant against two goons, while everyone else backed down. The boss sighed. You can't turn mice into lions overnight, he muttered. These kids think a few pretty words can change the world. His subordinate asked if they should help the boy. No, not yet, the boss replied. The kid needs to learn this lesson himself. Either he gets smarter from this, or he dies. Honestly, the second option is probably faster. His subordinate agreed. They'd watch over the boy, Maxim, for a little longer. If things got too dire, they'd step in. A wise plan, he said. The knife-wielding bully stalked towards Herm. Start begging. If you do a good job, I might make it quick. But then, Herm spoke, his voice calm but firm. So what if we're weak? The villain's eyes went wide with disbelief. He couldn't comprehend why this kid wasn't terrified of him. Herm's face hardened with resolve. Just because we're weak doesn't give you the right to mock us, to trample us like dirt. We won't let you. Arrogant pigs get rich from our sweat and blood. We won't stand by and watch you torment the people we love. The crowd's attention snapped back to Herm, their spirits reigniting. You will not make our lives a living hell, Herm declared, staring the villain dead in the eye. I refuse to live like this, and I will end it. He yelled. I've faced death once before in that moment. My entire life flashed before my eyes. The young man's gaze burned with an unholy fire. He was determined to make everyone see the truth, that they had to change their fate. The villains paused, genuinely curious. Oh yeah, and what did you see? Herm's answer was chilling. I saw nothing. Absolutely. Nothing. There was only an empty, miserable existence with not a single good memory. A life so boring, so pointless, there was nothing to hold on to. He toiled day after day, getting nothing in return. You can't even call a slave's existence a life. he continued. It's a waking nightmare. The only escape is death. What do any of us have to lose? We all live this hell together. We are all weak. We all tremble with fear. But if we unite, we can achieve the impossible. Herm's voice resonated through the crowd. Brothers, sisters, lend me your strength, and I will lend you mine. I will be your sword. I will be your shield. And together, we will take back our dignity. A wave of hope surged. Hands shot into the air as they began chanting his name. Herm, Herm, Herm. Then, a cry from the crowd. Herm, look out! Danger was closing in. Fury ignited it in the young man's eyes. His reaction instantaneous. The goon with the howl. Knife lunged at him. His eyes glinted with malice, aiming for a cheap, sneaky shot. The blade moved in a blur. It left a shallow cut on Herm's shoulder, barely breaking the skin. The villain swung again, aiming for a finishing blow. But Herm moved like water, evading the strike. As the knife flashed past, Herm didn't hesitate. He grabbed
his opponent's arm in a vice grip. With a masterful twist, he reversed the thug's momentum. The enemy was helpless.
Herm wrenched the villain's arm, forcing him to plunge his own knife deep into his chest. A fountain of crimson erupted into the air. The villain crumpled to the ground, a knife buried deep in his chest. One down, Herm muttered coolly. Where are the others? A thrill of battle coursed through him. He was ready for whatever came next. His nostrils flared with adrenaline. There was no backing down. Fueled by Herm's words, the crowd erupted into a righteous frenzy, turning their fury on the second villain.
Herm's voice boomed over the chaos. Virgo is nothing. He and his lackeys are few, but we are a legion. He thanked them for their courage. Follow me, Herm roared, raising his blade. And I swear on my life, we will drive these tyrants from our home.
A single, slow clap cut through the cheers. Everyone turned toward the sound. The applause came from Ruck, the mine's undisputed alpha. You and I, he said with a smirk, need to have a little chat. Elsewhere, a girl ran frantically, searching for her brother. Herm clutched a makeshift bandage to his bleeding shoulder. She finally spotted him and screamed, What have you done? How could you possibly do this? We had an agreement. Herm feigned confusion, but she saw right through it. Don't you dare play dumb with me. Everyone's talking. You just signed our death warrants by killing Virgo's men. As he rewrapped his wound, he looked at his sister calmly. It was necessary, he stated simply. I am in control of my own life, and I will protect you. But her eyes only filled with horror. Necessary to kill them? Why? He met her panicked gaze. To make friends, he replied. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. His sister stared back, utterly baffled. Make friends? How does murder lead to friendship? That's insane, she cried. Sit down. Herm sighed, realizing he'd have to spell it out. This required a full-blown presentation. He needed her to see the master plan. She glared back, arms crossed, completely unconvinced.
What could he possibly say to make this right? Fine, stand if you want. He shrugged. But you're going to listen to my explanation?
To survive this hellhole, we need allies. And right now, there are two major powers in this section of the mine.
Ruck and Virga. Ruck is stronger, but Virga is backed by the overseers, giving him a massive political advantage.
So, the smart move is to join Virga. Right, wrong. Virga's camp is a snake pit, filled with ambitious thugs. If you join him, you'll die as just another disposable pawn. But Ruck's situation is entirely different. Ruck doesn't have the overseer's favor. He'll actually value any ally who proves to be useful. A sly grin touched Herm's lips. So, I showed him something he desperately wanted to see. And it worked. Ruck himself came to me, offering a partnership. But there was a slight complication in my plan. At that very moment, the mob was about to lynch Virgo's other man. As the man begged for his life, Ruck stepped forward to deliver the final blow. But Herm moved faster, blocking his path. Ruck glared down at him. What do you think you're doing? He is the enemy. Herm didn't budge. Let him go, he declared. It's the right play, Ruck scoffed. Is this some kind of sick joke, show kindness to your rival? And he'll come back tomorrow to slit your throat or your sister's? But Herm was ready to explain phase 2 of his plan.
Whether we kill this man or not, I've already made an enemy of Virga. That much is certain. The boy reasoned. But showing mercy to another victim of this cursed world, that proves we are different. We've all hit rock bottom in this place. We've all done things we're not proud of just to get stronger. Herm's gaze was piercing. But I believe everyone deserves a chance at redemption, even when we feel like we're drowning in despair.
We're all just trying to swim to the surface. He turned to the terrified villain. The only question is, can you still swim? The man stared at his dead colleague in a pool of blood. He did not want to share that fate.
Yes, I can swim, the villain screamed desperately. Herm turned back to Ruck. I know this is hard for you.
But we have to show that we are not like Virgo's butchers. The best way to do that is to show mercy. Ruck was silent. He stared intently at the young man. Anger still burned in his eyes. But a seed of doubt had been planted. Herm met his gaze, standing between the warrior and the villain. The choice now belonged to Ruck. A deep voice rumbled. "You're playing a dangerous game, kid, but I like it." A sparkle appeared in Herm's eyes. He looked up at the towering warrior beside Ruck. "Thanks for the vote of confidence." "The name's Hem," the man grinned. "Only the tough ones call me that. To the rest, I'm Himal." Herm nodded, then addressed Ruck again. "Let him go. This will benefit all of us." Hem nudged his boss. "He's right, the kid might be small, but he's got guts." Still, Ruck didn't answer. His face was a mask of stone. The gears in his head were turning, weighing every possible outcome. He weighed the pros and cons, the risks and rewards. Finally, Ruck raised his hand. "So be it. We'll do it his way." The villain couldn't believe his ears. He was actually getting out of here alive. He was sure his story had come to an end. In an instant, the boy was sprinting for his camp. But just at the last moment, he froze. Something flashed. Through his mind. The brute turned and shouted, "Thank you, brother." Then he bolted off, without a single look back. The deed was done. Herm casually told Ruck, "See, not so bad." Ruck just called him a madman. Herm overheard whispers from the crowd. They couldn't believe he'd actually let the boy go. It just didn't feel right. Seems everyone here has been drowning in fear for far too long. But maybe, just maybe, things were starting to change. Suddenly, the warden appeared. He asked if the two were done with their little show. Herm and Ruck tensed up. Nothing good ever came from the wardens. The warden and Herm greeted each other like old acquaintances. He then asked how Herm's sister was doing. The young man replied she was fine, and that they'd wrapped everything up. The warden cracked his whip with a smirk. "In that case, everybody get back to work. The performance is over. Everyone had to meet their daily quota, or he'd flog them all." Ruck wondered why the warden wasn't furious with him. Herm explained, "He's a friend of the family, but he might get angry if they didn't clear out." He asked Ruck if they could talk somewhere private. In the end, Ruck agreed to team up with Herm. He would provide protection from Virga and help build their own faction. And that was the end of Herm's report. His sister then asked, "And what does Ruck get in return?" Herm revealed. He had agreed to become his vassal. Their new territory would sit right between Cancer and Virga. The girl's eyes gleamed with understanding. "So, my brother is a gang boss now," she teased. "Isn't that what you always wanted?" He replied that he needed power to protect. The ones he loved. He couldn't do it alone and needed allies. The boy added that he desperately needed his sister's help, too. She had to agree. The girl stared deep into his eyes. "Is my brother still in there somewhere?" He nodded without hesitation. "Of course, I love my sister dearly. You remind me of her often." She then demanded, "What is his name? What is his real name? I want to know, right now." The young man hesitated, wondering if it was really that important. What if he had to escape her someday if she knew his name? She could control him. He would become her servant. His sister's voice turned cold. "Tell me everything, or I go after the priestess," the young man raised his hands in surrender, closing his eyes. "My name is Leonard, but most people just call me Leo." The girl then commanded, "Leo, strike me." Her posture was absolute, leaving no room for refusal. The boy tensed up, clenching his fist as he looked fearfully at his sister. But in the next moment, he declared, "Nope, not gonna do it." And then he stuck his tongue out at her. A smile bloomed on her face, a blush coloring her cheeks. "All right then," she said softly. Meanwhile, the fat man ran back to his camp. He didn't dare look back, still trembling with fear. The words Herm had spoken echoed in his mind. "Will you be able to swim out, brother?" That single phrase replayed over and over again. It sparked something deep inside him, a thought of something pure. He saw an image of children with their parents. Then villains appeared. A mother clutched her, children in terror. The villain was one of Virga's own men, an insatiable monster. Virga had told him. He had to join them, and it wasn't a request. The man refused. He didn't want to leave his family, his young children. But it was explained to him that he no longer had a choice. He wasn't the man he used to be. Two thugs dragged him to Virga's camp, leaving his wife and children behind. The man was brought before Virgo himself. He bowed low before the warrior. Virgo looked down on him with contempt. The boss explained his new duties. What would become his new responsibility? They were to collect tribute, and nobody cared if families starved because of it. It was a completely different life, a life he never wanted. He began drinking heavily, surrounded by strange women. But he could never forget his wife. He was becoming a monster. He started to hurt the weak, taking from them what was rightfully theirs. More women appeared, and slowly, the memory of his wife and children began to fade. His family was left destitute. Life was unbelievably hard for them after their protector had been taken. But soon, this man started to like his new life. He couldn't imagine anything else. It was wrong, but it was easy. And then Herm appeared. Everything in his life changed in that moment. Maybe he had a chance. The boy's words echoed once more. Will you be able to swim out? It was a chance to go back, to reclaim his old life. The man thought, what am I doing? How can I live like this, and how? Could I abandon my own family? He remembered his wife's face, his kids' laughter, and he screamed, I can fix this. I can escape this hell. We can start over. He ran, with only one thought in his mind, a cold sweat covering his entire body. How could anyone live like this? He could just swim out. Herm told himself. This makeshift market was a pit. A woman with a child scrounged for food. A goblin barker called out to the crowd. She had no choice. With a baby to feed, she had a child to provide for. Nearby goblins watched some old women, laughing cruelly. They were scheming. Suddenly, Gorza yelled at her brother. I'm not finished yet, she shouted. He shot back that she'd been packing all morning, so he decided to speed things along. The girl screamed in frustration. She insisted they needed to save their money. Unlike some people, she didn't want to waste their merit, but he claimed he was saving up for something important. His brilliant idea, a wooden door for their cave. She declared they absolutely did not need a door. They lived right next to the guards. No one would dare bother them, especially now that her brother was the one collecting tribute. Don't you collect it like everyone else? The young man explained it wasn't that simple. The boss gave him control over this territory for a reason. It was because the territory was worthless. The boss wasn't getting any profit from it himself. He was just dumping unprofitable land on him. His sister was baffled. Then why did you agree to it? What good will it do? It's just more trouble. Her brother just smiled. Great things are born from humble beginnings, he said. Just wait a little while and you'll see. Just then, a voice called out to him. He told his sister, That's Volker, my assistant. He asked what was going on. Volker reported that Rock had the message. A new directive had just come down. They announced a new expedition. To the lower level of the caves, Volker added the most important detail. The expedition would start in 2 weeks. The brother and sister exchanged a worried glance. All around them, warriors were sparring casually. They practiced hand-to-hand combat, weapons in hand. The young man announced his soldiers were ready for inspection. His men saluted their commander. Herm thanked Volker for a job well done. Now he wanted to see what his warriors had really learned. What had they gained during all their training? He spotted 2 soldiers slacking off in formation, chatting. They were leaning on their weapons like canes. They paid no attention to the commander right in front of them. Herm strode over to the young men and kicked the weapon out from under one of them. The recruits didn't know what hit them. The warrior lost his balance and fell flat on his face. This is a weapon, not a cane, Herm growled. It must be used for its intended purpose.
When you stand in formation, you stand at attention. Eyes forward. Jane.
Herm ordered Volker. Each of them, 40 push-ups, on the ground. And I want you to make sure it's done. To the others, he commanded, You can start the practice fights. The soldiers immediately lined up for their sparring matches. Discipline in this unit was absolute. The soldiers endured grueling drills and combat training. Herm watched them, lost in thought. He tried to teach them tactics and the basics of combat. They had learned something. He knew. But the young man realized the grim truth. They were just a handful of miners. That was why the goblins had slaughtered them so easily before. The new expedition was coming. The original leader was injured, delaying their departure. It bought them extra time for training. But it was still nowhere near enough. A soldier confessed to his commander, I've never held a weapon, but I've seen the guards fight those helblings. Perhaps we should train to use long-range weapons. Herm thought it was a brilliant idea, but where would they get wood good enough for a decent bow? That was a major problem in these parts. The rich and the goblins controlled all the quality materials, everything needed for making real weapons. Volker told the young man to lower his voice. There are a lot of ears around here. It's dangerous. Herm sighed. I understand. It's just that our situation is beyond dire. Frankly, I wouldn't mind having a rifle. Volker suggested using slingshots and spears to achieve their goals. It could be an alternative. But Herm pointed out the local stones were too fragile. They would just shatter against the shells of the helblings. Plus, grunts like them weren't allowed too many spears. What if we used clay bottles instead of stones?
Volker had no idea what he was talking about. What do clay bottles have to do with anything? Herm replied that a bottle could hold many different things. A paralysis potion? Sleeping powder?
The bottles can be filled with anything, even oil. And then we can set our enemies on fire. Herm added that, unfortunately. None of that was free, and they had no money left. He'd spent it all on cheap wooden breastplates and helmets. Volker replied to his commander. The guys appreciate all of this. Now we're not empty-handed, and our heads are protected. Herm said it would be better if there was enough money for everything. Then his squad would be properly equipped. An idea sparked in the young man's mind. They could mine their own metal. Then they could make their own projectiles for the slingshots. That would be wonderful. Volker asked if lead would work. Herm's eyes lit up. Lead would be perfect. It could even penetrate a bronze helmet. But the young man added that they had no ore, and no one who knew how to smelt it. Volker said, I have a friend. He might be worth talking to. Maybe he can help. Herm was instantly interested in this information. Volker added that this guy was special. He's in exile. My father saved his life a long time ago. He can help, but it won't be for free. This young man was a skilled craftsman, a specialist who won't bleed you dry for the job, and he's completely trustworthy. Herm's interest was immediately piqued. He declared that this was a different matter entirely. He then ordered Volker to take him to this so-called expert. But Volker hesitated, explaining, this guy, he turns down literally everyone, except for Volker's family, of course. Dragging Herm into this mess would just be asking for trouble. The young man figured, that guy's pride was so massive, he probably couldn't even look people in the eye. After the banishment, Volker apologized to Herm. He felt useless for not being able to help more. But Herm insisted Volker himself should go, because those shells could completely turn the tide. Volker promised he would make it happen, snapping to attention with a yes, sir. Just then, 2 rogue soldiers approached Herm. They reported they'd finished their 40 push-ups each. Perfect, because Herm had a very special task just for them.
You know the acid pits near the Forbidden Caves? He asked. The soldiers went pale but nodded. Clearly, they had some history there.
Herm told them to grab a few more guys and a rope. They were all about to go on a very exciting field trip. Soon, Herm unveiled their prize, a monstrous, huge centipede. Volker and the others were absolutely terrified. Why in the world would their commander want to mess with something like that? Herm casually approached the dead beast, asking why they were so scared. The men were practically shivering, cold sweat pouring down their necks. How was their commander so calm around this thing? As the monster was wheeled in on a cart, a soldier asked where to put it. The commander pointed.
Unload it next to the wall, he ordered. That would be the centipede's new home. Volker finally asked what on earth that thing was.
Herm just smiled, calling it an old friend they could put to good use. A moment later, Volker returned with the items Herm requested. Perfect, Herm said. Admiring the weight and shape, they were brand new slingshots. Volker mentioned the craftsman was extremely proud of his handiwork.
Herm even noticed the craftsman's personal mark on them. He asked his assistant for one, eager to give it a test run.
The young man loaded a lead projectile into the weapon. He began to swing the slingshot, building momentum and taking aim. It was time to test this new weapon in action. The centipede in the corner silently awaited its fate, its dead grin unnerving everyone. They were about to put it to good use. Herm expertly spun the slingshot and let the projectile fly straight toward its target. The piece of lead tore right through the centipede's tough shell, punching a clean hole. Volker was speechless. He asked the commander for his verdict. Herm replied that more testing was needed, and everyone would be participating. Have Volker distribute the shells, Herm commanded. Everyone gets to try. Whoever's shot goes in deepest gets 10 merits. Volker's eyes lit up. Can I enter the competition? Sir, I used to be the best slinger in my neighborhood. A few extra merits certainly wouldn't hurt. By all means, Herm replied. Show these soldiers how it's done. Let them follow your glorious example. Herm smirked. Even the children of this desolate land used slingshots to hunt for food. This was going to be their secret weapon. Unfortunately, Volker's shot was a total flop. He was devastated. Herm patted his back. You'll get it next time. This stuff takes practice. But as Herm thought about it, an idea sparked. He turned to the moping Volker. Volker immediately perked up, asking how he could help the commander. Hope was restored. Herm asked him to tell his craftsman friend to make as much ammunition as possible, but with one condition, no maker's mark. They were short on time. Volker beamed, promising to pass on the message immediately. Nothing made him happier than feeling useful. Meanwhile, Gorza eyed Volker's cheerful exit.
Looks like someone had a great day, she muttered. Herm sighed. The day could have been even better if someone hadn't destroyed a wooden door.
Gorza instantly pounced on him. How many times are you going to bring that up? We can't afford a new one. Tears welled up in her eyes. She was at her breaking point. She told Herm what had happened at work that day. Her own supervisor told her to calm down, saying she was working way too hard just for some merits. Herm was at a loss for words. He felt terrible for his sister, but there was nothing he could do to fix it. Yet, the girl grabbed her brother, screaming in frustration. "Don't you see how bad this is? It can't get any worse. The one person who should want me to work to death is telling me to rest." She pushed him away and turned her back. "I know you're working for two," the young man said softly, "but it's all for our future." His sister just wanted to be left alone. "I just want to go to bed," she mumbled. "I don't need anything else from you." Herm tried again. "I made you dinner. I just want you to relax." But he didn't have time to finish. "What is that horrible stench?" Gorza asked, her nose wrinkling. She peered into the next room and let out a blood-curdling scream. Pure, unadulterated fear was in her eyes. Gorza turned away and immediately threw up. Herm looked to see what was causing the foul odor. Even he felt his stomach churn. On their table sat the severed head of the man from Vergus's squad, the one he and Rack had let go. The boy sighed. "Looks like we'll have to buy a new door after all." Suddenly, a man is playing beautiful music on a flute, a young boy watching him. His eyes are wide with wonder. There's hot, delicious food on the table, the aroma driving him mad. The baby is drooling. He is so hungry. He wants to devour it all. A woman, the child's mother, notes how hungry her son is, but the man with the flute simply sneers. What has this child done to deserve food? Let him go find his own. He screams at the boy to know his place, telling him to scrounge for food somewhere else. As a child, he believed that life itself was just pain. His stepfather, a former nobleman turned neighborhood gang boss, was now nothing more than a beggar. Looking at him, the boy saw his mother's tragic past and his own doomed future. His stepfather had many enemies, and they all took their rage out on the child. The kid became the street's personal punching bag. As fists rained down, the only sound in his head was the haunting melody of a flute. The boy grew to despise it. When he was old enough, his dear stepfather sold him to a fighting pit to clear his debts. Every single night, the boy fought, against other children just to see the next sunrise. They even used bladed weapons. It was a pure survival of the fittest. In these brutal fights, there was no room for pity. Each combatant was a starving wolf to the other. The losers would beg for mercy. They'd appeal to a humanity that no longer existed there. But it never worked. The weak were simply not meant to survive. The boy grew up in battle until not an ounce of mercy remained in his soul. The only law was to kill or be killed. And through it all, that damn flute played on an endless loop in his mind. In his neighborhood, rat fights were the local entertainment. The local kids found it hilarious, forcing starved rats to tear each other apart for a scrap of food. The young man saw his own reflection in those rats. He too danced, to someone else's tune, hoping to live just a moment longer. But then one day, he witnessed something extraordinary. A child was tormenting one particular rat, prodding it, forcing it to fight. But this rat did the unexpected. It leaped from the cage and sank its teeth into the hand of its abuser. The young man stared in absolute awe. He watched that animal fight back, and something inside him clicked. If even a rat could resist its own enslavement, why couldn't he? That creature knew it couldn't win, but it tried anyway. And in the end, it died a rat, not a slave, the boy thought. If an animal that small has such courage, why shouldn't I? Even if it means suffering, even if it means death. So what he made a vow that day, he would live by one rule and one rule only his own. If his parents had bothered to see beyond their own selfish desires, they might have foreseen this outcome. The young man didn't poison them. No, he just put them to sleep. They tried to teach him the brutal laws of this world. And so, the boy took everything from them in return. He now had his own laws to follow. He seized his parents' power, their lives, and even their very skin. He then shouted for all to hear that they had witnessed the end of the old regime. He demanded to know, who do they serve now? But still, the phantom sound of the flute echoed in his mind. He screamed a single word, a name, Verga. The young man's eyes blazed with a bottomless hatred. That feeling consumed him, leaving nothing good behind. Verga grew up and began playing the flute himself, just like his stepfather. It became his signature. His gaze was now cold and penetrating, so intense it was difficult to endure. You could see the world of cruelty he had survived in his eyes. The young man couldn't bear that, stare, and quickly apologized to his boss. Verga calmly said he was listening to Oswald, and placed his flute on the table. The young man quickly agreed that his boss was right. His assumption was correct. Oswald reported that Helmar is a traitor. This was now a certainty. Verga showed absolutely no emotion. I see. was all he said, an icy coldness swirling in his eyes. He didn't say another word. Virga kept clay figurines of his warriors. He had amassed quite the collection. He picked up one of the statuettes in his hand. It was a figure of Helmar. What a shame, Virga said. And that was that. His final decision had been made. When he first took his father's throne, the men around him were his enemies. To survive, he needed his own people, men he could truly trust. The young man began his search for loyal followers. And Helmar. Helmar was the first of 10 he brought into his inner circle. The guy seemed completely trustworthy. He thought he'd be perfect. A forgotten bastard from a noble family. He was practically Virga's mirror image. He shared Virga's view of the world and his ambitions. Virga began to teach the young man everything, helping him rise from nothing. Together, they clawed their way to a new home. They did it the hard way, based on their shared philosophy. These young men had seized a new future for themselves, a future paid for with blood and murder. They carved their path, forward with brutal force, their hearts devoid of mercy. To Virga, Helmar was like a son. He was his firstborn. Virga placed a hand on Oswald's shoulder. "Tell me why," he asked. "Why would Helmar do this?" Oswald, trembling with fear, stammered that he didn't understand. "Don't play games with me, Oswald," Virga warned. When their boss appointed him and Helmar as his right and left hands, Helmar had two choices: accept the decision or defy it. His choice was a natural consequence. When he chose Helmar, he made it clear the world was not some rosy, welcoming place. He wanted to teach everyone that to achieve true greatness, you must rise above petty laws and morals. Only God should stand above them. In the end, Virga concluded, you reap what you sow. This is the result, Oswald asked his boss. What do we do now, model? Virgo simply replied that Oswald shouldn't worry. The stage was already perfectly set. All they had to do was wait for the show to begin. Oswald finally understood. The boss had Helmar send Herm's head for a reason. Virgo confirmed his suspicions, and a chill ran down Oswald's spine. Oswald wondered aloud if displaying the heads of the Pog family wasn't just a little excessive. Vergas scoffed. As a deserter, Pog got what he deserved. The Pogs never shied away from crime, and a price must always be paid. He deluded himself into thinking he could escape his past, claiming he never ordered such atrocities against women. But when the day of reckoning came, his own men threw him under the bus, and Oswald noted, their boss never stopped them. Of course I didn't, Vergas said with a smirk. If I micromanaged them, we'd never have grown into such a force. Even treacherous pawns have their uses, after all. Oswald then dared to ask about his children. Vergas replied that they were long dead, but their short lives had served a purpose. While Helmar was busy with them, Bolo managed to rescue Pog's wife and daughter. Vergas had them hidden away in a safe place. It was the most he could do. Now, he ordered, tell Helmar to unleash his full power and crush Herm's forces. That boy has raised quite an army. Let's see just how strong he is. Vergas raised a flute to his lips, hoping Herm wouldn't disappoint. If it was truly him, elsewhere, a young man stood before a massive gate, the gaping maw of a cave promising only darkness within. Guards armed with spears stood at attention outside a tent, clad in their protective gear. The young man, Herm, knew Cancer's men had blocked the other path. The enemy's only route was through the cave of the corpse eaters, right into their trap. He turned to his lieutenant. Volker, what's the status of the barriers? If all goes to plan, they'll be ready by morning. Everyone was working themselves to the bone. It has to go smoothly, Herm declared. Otherwise, Helmar's army will turn us into a collection of mangled corpses. Volker nodded, understanding the grim reality. But he confessed, the men are scared, we're outnumbered, and most of them have never held a weapon before. Herm sighed. What else? Volker explained how warlords since ancient times would offer prayers before a battle. It seemed to be the same story everywhere. A little superstition to calm the nerves, Herm thought with a cynical smirk. He soon arrived at a sacred cave, calling into the shadows. Two imposing guardians emerged. I was expecting you, he said. I'm here for the priestess Kataga. All who wish to see the priestess, one of them boomed, must first endure the rite of purification. Herm proceeded into the next chamber, where an ancient woman was waiting for him. I am here, she rasped, to serve the waters of Marin, which purify the soul. You must drink twice. Herm groaned internally. Not this stuff again. He cut to the chase. All right, where do I get it? It is a gift from the gods, she said, pointing. You must fill a vessel with the water that drips from those stones. She eyed him. You seem impatient. I have a war to fight, he shot back, and I'd rather it didn't start without me. The old woman chuckled. Most men try to avoid battle. Herm's jaw tightened. I am not most men. When she pressed him on why the fight was so important, he scoffed. You wouldn't understand. Her eyes glinted with ancient wisdom. Oh, I think I'd understand better than anyone. You stand in the temple of Za, the goddess of war. Taken aback, Herm confessed, "This battle will decide my future. If I win, I can change this world. If I lose, my men and I are all dead." He finished collecting the water. "Is this enough?" At her nod, he took a sip. His face instantly shriveled up. It tasted like goblin sweat mixed with despair. Absolutely vile.
Unfazed, she asked, "If you want to change the world, what is it you're truly fighting for?" He replied simply, "Justice."
The woman shook her head. "You understand nothing, child. Such ideals don't belong to this world. Peace itself is neutral. Justice for one," she continued, "is injustice for another. It is an endless circle, broken only by blood."
Herm smirked. "That's some strange logic for a servant of the war goddess. Isn't she supposed to be bloodthirsty? Za only wishes to bring out the best in this world," she corrected. "Conflict forges the strong."
"The dead don't get any stronger," Herm retorted. Her reply was cold as ice. "That is a privilege reserved for the victors." He decided to push it. "Would you be offended if I said your goddess is insane?" She let out a cackle. "All gods are mad. Boy, if they weren't, how boring would this world be?"
"So what's my choice?" Herm demanded. "Run away and live like a worm?"
The woman's voice turned serious. "Your heart is filled with rage. Because of it, you cannot see your true enemy."
"The gods will never oppose you," she revealed, "because you are already doing their will." Herm slammed down the empty cup, signaling he was done.
He looked her dead in the eye. "Then tell me, Priestess Kataga, who should I be fighting?" The woman laughed, a knowing glint in her eyes. "You're not that stupid, are you?" She clearly had an answer prepared. Herm gave a slight smirk. "You know, for an old servant, you have remarkably good teeth." She simply smiled. "I am no servant. Whether he faces a man or a god, he is prepared to crush anyone in his path. In a world forged from blood, even after great changes, it will remain a world of blood and violence. So, what will the young man choose to resist the mad gods, or to accept their will?" The young man scoffed. "Do you really think I'm just a pawn in someone else's game?" The woman simply challenged him. "Can you prove otherwise?" Herm declared he was done with all this talk of faith. He'd heard more than enough of it back at the orphanage. As he turned to leave, the woman asked, "Don't you want Zia's blessing for your army?" The young man shot back that her god could decide for herself who to bless. He, on the other hand, still had a war to win. Later, his aide asked Herm how the meeting went. He replied, "The god of war wants to team up. Now, he just had to figure out what to say to his warriors." The young man stood tall before his army. He had something important to tell them. But just then, a scout announced the arrival of a priestess. The woman addressed the commander. "May I bless your army before the battle?" The young man was taken aback, but agreed, saying he didn't mind. The priestess, her face hidden by a mask, addressed the soldiers. "Warriors bravest of the brave, the goddess of war, Za, had sent her here with a divine blessing. She would grant them the strength to finally crush their enemies, once and for all. The goddess has also bestowed upon your warlord a new name, a name worthy of the great hero he is," the priestess declared. "From this day forward, Herm shall be known as Lion, the Liberator." The young man was floored. That name echoed relentlessly in his mind. He wondered where this lion would emerge from. He was tired of hiding in the shadows. It was time to show the gods what he was truly capable of. Meanwhile, in a cave, warriors rested, preparing their meals. A hooded figure moved silently among them. Suddenly, a group of injured men stumbled into the cave. They had urgent news. "There you are," one of them exclaimed. A man was supporting a wounded warrior, his head wrapped in a bloody bandage. The young man rushed over. "What happened to you? Tell me everything." The guy brushed it off. "It's nothing. Don't worry about it. Delk just slipped and hit his head." The boss gave a knowing look, saying he understood completely. He then asked, "Me to keep a close eye on this guy." The young man warned him to be careful. "Helmar is in a terrible mood right now." The man thanked him, sarcastically adding, "I'll try not to slip." Later, Helmar confronted Heim. "Did you come to enjoy the show?" Heim asked bluntly. "Don't you think you're being a bit harsh on your men?" Helmar scoffed. "It's called discipline, nothing more." The young man pressed on. "And am I being ignored?" "Because of discipline, too," Helmar stammered, trying to come up with a vague explanation. It wasn't working. He was at a loss for words. Heim stated, "I never asked to be Virgo's successor, so what am I supposed to do now?" Helmar shouted that he could simply refuse, that nothing would happen to him for it. But Heim knew better. Virgo wouldn't let him off that easily. "What would you do in my place, Helmar?" Heim challenged. Helmar fell silent. He already knew the answer. Exactly, Heim said. So don't make this a big deal. He added, I don't want to lose you. Helmar was incredulous. Are you telling me to disobey Virgo's orders? And not attack Herm. Stop acting like an idiot, Heim yelled. We both know what I'm talking about. Virgo knows everything, Helmar replied. Of course he knows everything. Why else do you think he sent me here? Every single one of Virgo's orders is designed to make me kneel at his feet. If we win, my fighters will be too battered to ever stand up to him. And if we lose, well, there won't be anyone left, Heim suggested. Then go to Virgo, beg for his forgiveness, swear your undying allegiance to him. Helmar placed a hand on Heim's head. One leader brings success, two brings tragedy. He gave an order. Have everyone ready. No matter what you or Virgo think, Helmar declared. My scouts have been tracking Herm's every move. Before noon, he will be utterly defeated. Heim uttered a single, sharp word. Liar, Helmar demanded. What did you just say? Heim revealed. My spies found out that Herm now calls himself Lion. A priestess from the Temple of Za blessed him last night, and named him Lion the Liberator. Helmar burst out laughing. That is the cheesiest thing I've ever heard, a Lion Liberator. How ridiculous, Helmar warned. You should tell your scouts to be more careful. There might be other surprises waiting for them, he added. He can be blessed by 100 gods for all I care. My victory is absolutely inevitable. Heim then asked, Do you truly believe you'll become one of the enlightened? Helmar cut him off. Why do you still refuse to accept the truth? Helmar the Enlightened is a myth, a fairy tale hero. Do you really believe that once upon a time, there was a goblin who could unite 100 clans into one great nation? A goblin capable of conquering everyone in this great forest, Helmar stated firmly. For the chosen of the gods, nothing is impossible. Heim countered. Then why did he leave nothing behind if he was so great? Why is there no trace of his legacy? Helmar replied grimly. I thought you knew your history, Heim. The children poisoned their own father, and then tore each other apart, and left nothing but ash and ruin. With no one left to preserve the legacy, the goblins knew only war. That is why they need a new enlightened one to restore the old order, Himim asked. And that person would be... Helmar gave a grim nod. Heim pressed further, asking about Virga's fate. Will he fight alongside you? Helmar replied. That the world must be forged anew, and it matters not who is consumed by the flames. A storm of resolve brewed within him as he prepared for war. He emerged before his soldiers, clad in the full regalia of battle. Warriors, he roared, the time has come to grind our rivals into dust. This expedition ends in 10 days, we strike fast, and we strike hard. He then demanded, Are you with me? In unison, a thunderous roar answered his call. Heim gave his brother a final warning. Take care of yourself. May the gods shield you. But Helmar's gaze was like steel, his determination absolute. The young warlord knew his path was righteous. He believed he could bend the very river of fate to his will. With that, he led his army to meet their destiny. His resolve was an unbreakable wall. The warriors marched as one, a river of steel and fury, each man a master of his craft and superbly armed. As was his custom, the commander led the charge from the very front. Suddenly, Helmar raised a single hand, and the entire column stopped in its tracks. His warriors obeyed his will without question. A scout rushed forward. Sir, the enemy has erected barricades deep within the cavern, a few hundred kigs away. The scout then relayed a tidbit from Professor Gorza's teachings. A kig is a unit of measurement in the Goblin world. It was named for ancient warriors of legend, who stood nearly 2 meters tall. On the other side of the field, their foes were preparing to repel the attack. They've formed ranks behind the barriers. Helmar's eyes narrowed. Give me numbers. Intelligence reported a force of about 20. Helmar scoffed. It has to be at least 30. I want confirmation from the other scouts. He surveyed the cave. It was a complete dead end, with only a few old men and children cowering in the houses along the walls. Let them hide in there like rats, the commander sneered. Excellent. We'll need witnesses to tell the world what transpires here today. Just then, a frantic cry erupted. Boss, behind you! Helmar whipped his head around. A scout pointed to the high ground. Another legion had appeared on the ridge. Whose banner did they fly? A murmur spread through the ranks. It's Virga! And so it was. Virga and his troops, fully armed and alert, watching the scene unfold from above. One of Helmar's warriors asked, Why is he here? A veteran answered him. He's here to watch us claim a decisive victory. The deputy then approached Helmar. Why not invite Herm to join us? The commander laughed. A brilliant idea while we're at it. Let's find another 300 skilled fighters. then it might be a fair fight. The warriors eyed Verga's legion, a seed of doubt taking root in their minds. Helmar saw the fear on their faces.
"What's with those pathetic expressions?" he boomed. "Verga came to witness our glory. Do you really think you can lose to a bunch of dirty diggers?" The soldiers rallied.
The commander's confidence was a blazing fire, burning away their fear. "We believe in our victory," they roared as one. They raised their weapons high, giving a thunderous war cry. Their faith in victory was restored. "That's more like it," Helmar grinned. "Now, let's show Verga what real power looks like." The warlord was practically vibrating with bloodlust, ready to tear his enemies to shreds. Meanwhile, on the opposing side, Volker reported to his commander. "The enemy has halted its advance." Herm nodded calmly. "I see. It is time we began negotiations." Volker was aghast. "Commander, you're truly going out there," Herm simply replied. "Why not?" "After all, it is tradition."
"But sir, it's a waste of precious time. They could attack at any second." Herm let out a patient sigh. "Volker, if you ever hope to lead..."
"You must learn this one truth. Wars are won and lost long before the first blow is struck. Never forget that. Through negotiation, you can dramatically increase your chances of success." Volker was confused. "In what way?" A cunning smile touched Herm's lips. "I am going to provoke him." The two opposing leaders approached one another, unarmed. The distance between them shrank until only 28 paces remained. Helmar looked him up and down with disdain. "You're Herm. I expected someone taller." Herm was unfazed. "I prefer to be called Lev." "And you are?" Helmar laughed in disbelief. "You don't recognize me. You're even more foolish than they say." The warrior puffed out his chest. "I am Helmar, and I am the man who will bring about your ruin." But Herm only asked, "Did Verga truly believe one squad under your command would be enough?" He waved a dismissive hand. "Go back and tell your master to send Oswald, Ludger, and Hemo as well." With that, Herm turned his back. "I'm already bored of wasting my time on you." Helmar's fists clenched so hard his knuckles turned white. No one had ever shown him such utter contempt. The warrior was seething. He was ready to tear this insolent whelp apart with his bare hands. Yet, something stopped him. Instead of rage, a chilling laugh escaped his lips. Herm paused, glancing over his shoulder, a flicker of genuine surprise in his eyes. He was intrigued by his enemy's unexpected reaction. "Did I say something amusing?" he wondered aloud. "Something that would make the great Helmar laugh?" The warlord sneered. "You think you can bait me with such childish tricks?"
"After I crush those pathetic rats you call warriors, I will force my new slaves to explain why their leader chose such a suicidal path."
"Afterward," he boomed, "I will make them write a song for future generations so that all of history will know that once there lived a small, feeble-minded worm whom I personally ground into the dirt." But in that very moment, Helmar saw something that froze his blood. Pure, undiluted fear flashed in his eyes, because standing behind the short young man called Herm was the towering phantom of Zia, the goddess of war herself. "You..." Her mask began to glow ominously. A wave of pure terror washed over Helmar. He was completely frozen, at a total loss. Herm simply turned his back, advising Helmar to pray to his god for forgiveness, because he certainly wouldn't be getting any from him. Humiliated and fuming, Helmar returned to his squad. His aide asked how the meeting went, but Helmar just wondered what he could have possibly seen. Deciding it was just a trick of the light, he shook it off. Helmar then roared an announcement to his men.
"The one who brings me the head of that short stack gets a reward," with a final command to attack. Herm silently watched the chaos begin.
He knew this bloody clash was unavoidable. The warriors readied their weapons, the glint of sharpened steel hungry for a fight. To repel the charge, a wall of spears pointed outward. Every soldier was on high alert as the distance between the armies vanished.
Herm's squad held their ground, a defensive wall behind the barricade. Helmar's warriors, however, were on the warpath. "Let's go," Helmar commanded. "The first man to break that barrier gets 20 merits from me."
Suddenly, a projectile from a sling smacked against his shield. The impact was completely unexpected. The warrior flinched. What in the world was that? He definitely wasn't prepared for this. A hail of stones continued to fly from the slingshots, pelting his soldiers as they advanced. Helmar never expected such a pathetic tactic from his enemy. The commander cried out in pure frustration. His squad was taking casualties. In a heartbeat, the tide of battle had turned against him. Meanwhile, Herm towered over his own squad, standing on a barrel, calmly observing the chaos. Helmar realized he had to take matters into his own hands. He would lead the attack personally. Surely, then his warriors would find their courage. "Everyone, follow my lead," he bellowed. His men just thought, they only have slingshots. What's the holdup? Helmar charged ahead of everyone, screaming that the enemy must be annihilated. Herm's deputy smirked. "Looks like we really ticked them off." But Herm remained on his barrel, a silent, unmoving observer. Finally, the young man hopped off. All right, he turned to Volker, giving his next command. Tell the slingers to fall back when their ammo is gone. The buccaneers will hold the barrier for as long as possible. It was time, he declared, to begin phase 2. This was all part of his grand, multi-pronged operation. Helmar scoffed in a rage. Did they really think a few armored soldiers could stop them, leave no one alive? He roared to his squad.
We're not taking any prisoners. That was all Helmar's men needed to hear. Adrenaline surged through their veins like fire.
They weren't about to show a shred of mercy. Wielding their axes, they began to tear the barricade apart. The wood groaned and cracked under the furious assault. It splintered into 1,000 pieces. Finally, the rivals could look each other in the eye. But then, the warriors in wooden armor suddenly started to scatter in fear. Their opponent simply yelled, "Hey, come back! It's almost time for dinner." Something caught a warrior's attention. He squinted. In his hand was a piece of rope, coated in something oily. Before he could figure it out, he looked up. Herm was standing right there with a lit torch. He hadn't run away at all. An aide warned Helmar. "Sir, Verga is watching. We cannot retreat." Indeed, Verga and his troops were positioned a short distance away. They observed the battle from the high ground. Let him enjoy the show, Gilmore thought. His turn is coming soon enough. A strange sound made him look back. What was that? Gilmore couldn't believe his eyes. An explosion? How could this possibly happen? His eyes widened in absolute horror. The entire barricade had just exploded into a wall of fire. His warriors were instantly engulfed. They stumbled out of the flames, screaming in agony. "This can't be happening," Gilmore yelled, having lost his warriors in a single, fiery instant. The aide stared at his commander, seeing nothing but despair. He had no idea what to do. Herm's deputy, on the other hand, calmly asked his boss, "What's our next move?" Verga continued to watch the slaughter with cold indifference. The fire raged before his very eyes, and he saw Helmar's warriors burning alive. "Well, they missed their chance," Oswald commented. "Don't jump to conclusions," Ledger replied. "The boys are already getting water and blankets from the houses. Sooner or later, Gilmore will get through." "No one's getting saved today," Oswald grumbled back. The warriors on the sidelines watched the battlefield with rapt attention, but the young man didn't seem to get it. Where did that even come from? He wondered aloud. Someone muttered that the infamous army of Kanzer had appeared. Nearby, Rock and his squad, armed to the teeth, were also watching the events unfold. "I'll kill anyone who tries to escape this rat hole," one of his men snarled. Another warrior offered, "I'll put 20 on the short guy winning." His comrade scoffed. "You're unbelievable. Our brothers are in mortal danger, and you're making bets." "Hey, Heim is the only one who doesn't believe in them," he shot back. Oswald chimed in. "I put 20 on Gilmore, immediately. Someone else matched the bet." Despite the inferno, Gilmore's unit continued to advance. His aide reported, "Sir, they've taken furniture from the houses. Use them as shields. The enemy still has ammo," the commander ordered, as his lieutenant scrambled to think.
"We need to break through their line," meanwhile. Gilmore sneered. "Insignificant fools, all they know is how to—"
"Hide behind fortifications." "On the other side," Herm calmly asked. "Report our casualties," Volker replied. 2 dead, 5 wounded. Gilmar had lost nearly a quarter of his force in that one push. That's why Herm's men were still standing strong, even if they couldn't risk a fight in the open, Volker added. "Sir, the men are worried about cancer." Herm just scoffed. "Tell them to worry about the spears in front of them. You only worry about a cancer when you're losing, and we are not losing." "Now," Herm ordered Volker. "Keep the signal horn ready and move on my command." Across the field, Gilmar's warriors were improvising. They created a wall of shields to block the slingshot pellets. "Shields up!" Gilmar roared. "We're going in again." But as they prepared to charge, a warrior shouted, "Sir, they're scattering. They're running away." And indeed, Herm's warriors threw down their slings and began a panicked retreat. Gilmar burst out laughing. "Ha! So they finally show their rat-like nature. Destroy them all," he commanded. The sooner, the better. Gilmar's squad charged forward, closing in on Herm's men. "Sir, the enemy is coming. We must be careful," Volker cried out. But Herm simply said, "I see them."
"I see everything. Tell me, Volker, do you know the difference between a good leader and a great one?" Volker just blinked.
No," he stammered. "Not exactly in the mood for a pop quiz," Herm explained. "A good leader makes decisions based on his mistakes, all while Gilmar's warriors got closer and closer. But a great leader," Herm continued, "looks at the situation from every single angle," the young man finished. At that moment, Gilmar was already celebrating his victory as he closed in. Suddenly, his warriors began to trip, stumble, and fall. Then, Gilmar himself let out a gut-wrenching scream.
A terrible, sharp pain shot through his feet. He'd stepped on something. and now both of his feet were on fire.
The warlord stopped dead and looked down. His boots were soaked in blood. Gritting his teeth, he pulled a massive thorn from his soul. It was slick with his own blood. The pain was unbearable. He couldn't take another step. As Gilmar roared in agony, his warriors panicked.
"We're in trouble," one cried. "I'm aware of that, you idiot," Gilmar bellowed back. But his deputy clarified.
"No, sir, something else. Look at the shacks. From the abandoned huts, a second army was pouring out. They had been hiding this whole time, and they were all armed. In an instant, Gilmar's warriors were surrounded. Their only option was to defend. They immediately formed a defensive pyramid with their shields. Huddling inside the makeshift fortress they had just built, a hailstorm of rocks and spears rained down on them. The enemy ring was shrinking, tightening around them like a noose. Gilmar's soldiers were trapped with nowhere to go, completely besieged. From a safe distance, Verga continued to watch the battle. Lugger smirked. "Well, it looks like my bet paid off," Hemo countered. "Gilmar is trapped. We should help him. If he takes some fighters, he might have a chance." Ludger just shrugged. "Gilmar lost the battle. He will die. No reason to save a failure." "But he's our brother," Hema pleaded. "How can you say such a thing?" Oswell silenced them. "Both of you, be quiet. Verga, what are your orders?" Inside the shield dome, Gilmar was fuming. How did that short runt get so many soldiers? One of his men suddenly gasped. "Sir, I see. PG's wife." Gilmar was stunned. "What? Where is she?" The warrior pointed. "Over there she's holding a red ribbon, and there, standing among the new army, was a girl. With a red bandage on her arm, her eyes filled with a cold hatred. Next to her stood Kar's father and his sister, Ma." The warrior realized he knew almost all of these people. Herm's plan was simple, the kid was short on soldiers. So he gathered the families of every person Gilmar had ever wronged. And it turned out to be a massive crowd. "Even a colony of ants can bring down a giant," Rogue noted dryly. "Gilmar isn't dead yet." Herm just smiled. "He will be soon. He's trapped," Rock added. "But there is nothing more dangerous than a cornered beast." Just then, Gilmar's warriors saw a lone figure approaching. It was the young commander, walking towards them completely unarmed. "What is he doing?" The commander strolled leisurely toward them. Gilmar squinted from under the shields. Confused. What in the world did this young man want now? He was clearly coming to talk. "So?" Gilmar schemed. "The little guy likes to run his mouth, let him get closer. The second he's in range, I give the signal. We break formation and kill him." Gilmar peeked out from his shelter. Well, the short man decided to pay us a visit," he yelled. "All right, warlord, let's hear what you have to say." Lev's voice was calm. "I didn't come here to talk to you. Gilmar." The trapped warlord scowled. "Then why are you here?" "I came to talk to your people," Lev announced. "And I hope every single one of you can hear me." He raised his hand. "Everyone, listen. This is not your fight," he declared. Gilmar's warriors glanced at each other in confusion. What did he mean by that? The lion continued, "The rich forced us to fight each other, while the best of us die on this battlefield. All while those bigwigs soak up the sun somewhere nice. You aren't my enemies, you're my brothers." The warriors listened, captivated by their opponent's words. "You don't want to be here. You want to be home with your families? Not dying for men who couldn't care less about you? Lay down your arms, and you will live." But one soldier scoffed. "Yeah, right. The moment we drop our weapons, you'll kill us." Others roared in agreement. "Better to die fighting you than to die unarmed," Gilmar sneered, telling the hero he was wasting his breath. "Verga's men know the deal. Every single one of us is prepared to die in battle." The young man just shrugged. "Then why isn't Verga helping you?" "It's because he wants you dead, Gilmar. He's not here to support you. He's here to clean house after you win. As long as you live, they'll keep dying for you. So I see two options: we all die, or only you die." A soldier turned to Gilmar, his voice trembling. "Boss, is that true?" Doubt spread like wildfire. "He said Verga will kill us if we don't kill you." Gilmar panicked, swearing he'd never betray them. He'd always done everything. "For yourself." Lev finished his sentence for him, and Gilmar knew it was over. With nothing left to lose, he called the boy a scoundrel, vowing to come out from behind his shield wall. Gilmar took a fatal step into no man's land, his eyes burning with pure desperation. He didn't get far before a spear pierced straight through him. He screamed in agony. "Sorry, boss," one man said. "I've got kids." Suddenly, it was all Gilmar's fault. The commander couldn't believe it. His own men had turned on him. "Traitors!" he roared in a final desperate cry. "I'll kill you all myself." In his last moments, he remembered the day he met Verga as a child. And with his body riddled with spears, the commander begged for forgiveness as he died. With Gilmar gone, his soldiers immediately announced their surrender. The fighting stopped. Verga approached the battlefield, his expression unreadable. His face was a mask of cold indifference. The lion watched his approach, just as calm. The young man, on his knees, suddenly cried out, "I don't want to die." He thrust his sword forward, screaming, "I'll gut every last one of you, starting with him." Virga simply told him to stop. "You're the real villain here," the boy shrieked. But Virga just pointed, and what the young man saw completely shattered his world. Standing beside the lion were Rak and his soldiers, armed and ready. This was the lion's trump card. He had won this battle completely. Virga made it clear that any further fighting was pointless. He turned and gestured for his own warriors to withdraw. The show was over for today. The lion watched them leave in silence. He knew it would end like this. Volker asked, "Why aren't you celebrating? Commander, we won."
"This was just a skirmish," Lev replied. "The real war is still coming."
"Fine," Lev chuckled. "Let's get everyone a drink. They've earned it." But their celebration was cut short. Rak's men were looting everything, and the families of the fallen wanted blood. The lion stormed towards the prisoners, determined to prevent a massacre. "Stop this now," he roared. One of Rak's goons sneered. "Back off, runt. We're just cleaning up your mess." "These are my spoils," the lion shot back. "Take your friends and wait until I've made a deal with Rak." The warrior just laughed and told his buddy Vic to explain the pecking order to this insolent kid. Vic swaggered up to Leo. "Got any merits to spare? Go on. Empty your pockets." He flashed a knife, but the lion was unfazed. Lowering his spear, he calmly said, "That is not how a warrior behaves." "You asked for this," Vic sneered, lunging forward with his own spear. But before he could even take a step, a fist slammed into his jaw with a sickening crack. The lion just watched silently as the whole thing unfolded. The nearby warriors stared in shock at Vic's unconscious body. A furious voice roared, "What in the hells is going on here?" The guy was absolutely livid. The warriors, who had just been celebrating their loot, began to tremble. They tried to stammer out an excuse, but Hem wasn't having it. "Silence," he bellowed. "You're on death duty for a week, and you'll be cleaning the latrine pits." The soldier went pale, knowing better than to argue with his commander. He deeply regretted all his life choices up to this point. "Or perhaps," Hem snarled, "you'd prefer to patrol the caves, where the giant centipedes hunt."
The warriors shrieked in unison. "No, not that. We'll never do it again."
"Then why are you still standing here?" Hem demanded. "Take your friend Vic and get out of my sight."
"And I better never see your faces again." As they scrambled away, Hem turned and apologized to the lion.
"My apologies. Some of these soldiers are complete idiots." The lion simply thanked him for his help. "I won't forget this," he said. But Hem just shrugged. "Don't thank me. I just didn't want the paperwork for your deaths." "I didn't intend to kill them," Leo explained. "I was just going to teach them a very painful lesson. Regardless, I am grateful." Hem shook his head. "After what you did to Gilmar, I'm amazed those boys had the guts to face you. Clearly, life teaches them nothing." "You're the one who recruited them." A new voice cut in. It was Rak, the commander. Hem immediately stood at attention and apologized. Leo nodded to Rak. "Thanks for the backup." But Rak waved him off. "Don't mention it. You're always welcome." Leo got straight to the point. "So, you won't be taking any trophies?" Rak smiled. "Our deal was 20 to 30%. But after that performance, I want half." Leo's eyes narrowed. "Half? Isn't that a little greedy? We were severely outnumbered. I'd say 80-20 is more than fair." And so the intense haggling began. As neither commander would budge, Rak smirked at Hem. "See, this is what happens when you're too generous." Then he turned back to Leo. "I'll admit, you fought on your own. And won with minimal losses. But without my support, this mission would have failed. So 50-50 it is." But the lion didn't back down. "I took down their commander, while you didn't lose a single man. So I'll agree to 70-30, Rak countered. "Gilmar was just an annoying pest. Besides, I helped locate the victims' families." 40-60, Leo acknowledged. "You did provide help, but I was the one who persuaded you to come here in the first place. So 70-30 is my final offer. And you can have Gilmar's axe." At that, Rak and Leo shook hands, sealing the deal. While the warriors were negotiating, a lizard tried to drag off a breastplate. "Hey," the lion shouted, "that's a warrior's spoil." A man rushed to chase down the little thief. Rak yelled, "Men, collect the loot from the first barrier, and hurry." Leo then asked, "And what about the prisoners?" Volker stepped forward. "They're being detained. The families are still furious. They don't want to just let them walk free. We've calmed them down, but it's only temporary. The prisoners are under guard." The lion thought for a moment. "Once the families have left, strip the prisoners down to their underwear, and let them go. Make sure Rak gets his third of the spoils." Volker grumbled. "I don't like having to share loot." "You don't have to like it," Leo replied coldly. "We work together only as long as we have a common enemy," Volker asked. And what happens when that enemy is gone? Leo's eyes glinted. Then, we'll see who is stronger. But we only need to think about that after this expedition is over. Later, a young man tiptoed through a dark cave with a bag on his back. A sudden noise echoed from the darkness. "Who's there?" he cried out, completely startled. He lost his balance and pitched forward.
He couldn't stay on his feet and sprawled onto the ground. His spear fell from his grasp as he looked up and saw
the source of the sound. Wild predators were sneaking up on him. He was completely surrounded, rubbing a fresh bruise on his head. He heard a voice. "What are you doing here, Volker?" It was Leo. The young man jumped, apologizing. "Are you trying to catch your breakfast?" the lion asked with a smirk. Volker spat on the ground. "Ugh, no. These things taste absolutely horrible." "You've tried them?" Leo asked curiously. He thought for a second. "I guess I've never had the pleasure." "Trust me, you don't want to," Volker said. "When I was a kid, times were really tough. And my mom actually caught and cooked one. It tasted like trying to chew on old leather." The lion laughed. "I'll remember that."
"I don't blame you for being scared down here," Leo then asked. "So, where are all the workers and merchants?"
As dawn broke, Volker noted, "Anyone not joining the expedition is in hiding today." Lev was intrigued and asked the young man why. "It's because of the goblins, sir," Volker explained. "When they pass through, things get a little chaotic. It terrifies the locals," Lev smirked. "So, it's a hide the women and children situation, right? That's an old saying from my home. We need to hurry. We don't want to get caught in their parade."
They pressed on with their journey, spotting a strange glowing insect below. But Volker was more concerned with his commander. "Sir, you're not wearing your usual face. Nothing is wrong," Lev replied flatly.
But Volker knew his commander had been different since the battle. He was now far too quiet and calm, Lev wondered. Haven't I always been this way? In his mind, nothing had changed. But Volker pressed, "A lion is always calm, sir. But when he's this calm, it means he's furious about something." Amused, Lev asked, "And what other brilliant observations have you made? Do you even know how to smile, sir?" Volker was completely serious. A true lion is always smiling. If he's not, it means something is bothering him. Or someone is bothering him. Or he's about to kill someone. Lev considered the wolfman's words. He thought, "Am I really that predictable? Can he truly read everything on my face?" Volker continued his diagnosis. "The boss only gets this angry when something gets in the way of his plans, or his sister." "That's enough, Volker," Lev cut him off. "This has nothing to do with my sister." "You're walking on thin ice," he warned. Volker tilted his head, completely confused. "Walking on thin ice? What does that mean?" He didn't understand the expression at all. Lev sighed, realizing he'd said something pointless. How could he possibly explain ice to this man? "It's just a saying," Lev explained. "It means you're sticking your nose where it doesn't belong."
"Ah, my commander is so knowledgeable," Volker said, then quickly apologized for saying too much. The lion simply told him to be more careful.
With what he says next time? Lev then thought to himself that Volker was partly right. He did have a problem concerning his sister. She was absolutely furious that he'd decided to start a fight with Gilmar. She thought war with Virgie could have been avoided. For now.
"That's just her nature, sir," Volker added. "She's always trying to take care of you both."
She worries you've spent a fortune on new gear for the entire staff. Plus, prices are rising every single day. My sources say the outside supply lines are being cut off. Someone is deliberately interfering with the food shipments. It's a massive problem for the Cancer and Virgo groups. And it will be for us, too. If food prices continue to climb, it will be impossible to maintain control. Volker then added, "If you grew up with your sister, I'm sure you have other problems as well." Lev sighed. "Her suitor can be a problem." Volker's ears perked up. "Which suitor are we talking about?" The lion explained. "Kale. That carefree guy from the Minders. Does he really like her?" Volker asked. Lev shot him a look, recalling their very recent agreement. "Didn't we just agree you'd be careful with your words?" The boy snapped to attention. "So true, sir. I will be much more careful from now on," Lev continued. "That guy. He does care about my sister."
"He tries to hide it, but he's too emotional. He seems to believe my actions could
"End up hurting her?" Volker inquired. "And what does he say at times like that?" "At times like that," Lev scoffed. "He says her brother is just another thug who dishonors the Greyborn name, and that it would be better if I died. He calls me a leech, sucking the life from her, not letting her live in peace." Volker's eyes suddenly lit up with a devious plan. "Sir, when we get back, I'll round up some guys. We'll put on masks and we'll go. Persuade him no one will ever recognize us." Lev stared at the wolfman, bewildered. What on earth is he thinking? Where does he even get these ideas from? "Volker, the boss said flatly. We are not doing that. But Volker insisted. Maybe we should just rearrange his face a little bit. Just to be sure, Lev sighed heavily. I appreciate your enthusiasm and your fierce impulse to defend my honor, but it's best to leave him alone. The lion continued. He actually has good intentions, and having someone looking after my sister makes me feel better. If something were to happen to me, I would know she is safe. Volker's expression softened. When you look at it that way, I understand what's at stake. Lev nodded. I understand too. But still,
I'd rather spend my time before an expedition in a more pleasant way, not getting an earful from my sister and her suitor.
Well, the lion announced, we're finally here. A massive cave loomed before the warriors. We'll have to send a scout in to report the situation. The men began to form a single file line. Volker and Lev stuck close together, deciding not to separate. The queue moved forward at a snail's pace. As they advanced, Lev saw an old buddy of his family. Well, look what the cat dragged in. The old man grinned. I heard you've become quite a busy man these days, Volker asked. Is that your foster father? Father Lev met the old man's gaze and simply said, I did what was necessary. The elder shot back. Are you sure you did the right thing? I have nothing against your crew, he continued. But your actions went too far. You should have called the guards instead of... By putting his men in danger, Volker yelled their accusations at the guards, leaving the old man to wonder why he was kept in the dark. Lev explained that Verga had already bribed the nobles, and they'd made sure the old man couldn't interfere. The lion stared at the old man, saying nothing more. The message was clear. He should have known. Old Man Cool admitted the young man had a point, and he shamefully lowered his head. He then asked if Lion's father would be proud, knowing what his son was up to now. The question made Lion pause, his father's face flashing in his memory. The old man continued, I don't know what you plan to do, but don't you dare disappoint him. Don't become like them. Lion declared that all he wanted was to create a better world, a promise he made to his father. Take care of yourself, Old Man Cool advised, wishing him luck. With that, the young men set off to find more of their crew. The lower caves were bustling with people, many of them sporting orange armbands on their sleeves. One man scanned the crowd, his gaze sharp and dangerously focused, sizing up everyone around him. When our heroes tried to sell some odds and ends, the man sneered. Sell your trash somewhere else, or I'll make you eat it. One of the boys shot back. Ali lost his flask. We're just trying to find a new one. Don't get in the way of our business. The man scoffed. You need to be smarter. This flask is made of barasa. The rind is so soft it'll rot in a few days. You need something that'll last, like an opus flask, he boasted, holding up his own. I've had this thing for 2 expeditions, and it still looks brand new. He eyed them up and down. You kids wouldn't last a week. Another man agreed, adding grimly. But it won't be thirst that gets them. He gestured for the young man to look around. Everyone from Lion's squad was huddled together, sticking close for safety. One of them asked if anyone had seen Lion or Volker, but was told they'd be late since Lev lives way out by the overseer's house. Suddenly, one of the boys rushed over to Mog. We've got a problem. Verga's men are trying to pick a fight with Rack's crew, and that could end very badly for us. He finished. Mog asked just how serious it was. Dead serious, the boy replied. Most of Rack's people aren't here yet, so we're completely outnumbered. But Mog stood firm. Rack supports us, so we support him. Someone then asked, but what about Lion? We were supposed to meet him? Mog said nothing, just motioned for them to take cover behind a rock. They could only watch and see how this disaster would unfold. Meanwhile, servants carried a chair with a goblin perched on it. Volker pointed. Lion, that's Goblin Fox. He's got 3 heads. Lev just sighed. Volker, you really need to start paying attention to what's happening around you. Volker was confused. What do you mean these are neutral lands? No one can touch us here. Lev gave him a look. Try telling that to the guys who have been tailing us for the last hour. Volker's blood ran cold as he frantically scanned the area. They've been following us. He hadn't noticed a thing. Lev slapped him on the back. Keep your head down. If they know we've spotted them, they'll attack. They've been on our trail ever since we passed through the gate. Volker was baffled. Then why haven't they attacked yet? Lev figured the pursuers had a bigger plan. Either they're waiting for us to walk into a trap, or we're already in it. Volker gulped. This whole thing sounds incredibly fishy. So, what's the plan? Lev asked. Turning to Volker, Volker froze. Why was his boss asking him Lion's the one who makes the calls? But Lion spoke up. Volker, you're my right-hand man. Your job isn't just to follow orders, it's to think for yourself. I need to know our boys are in good hands when I'm not around. Lev smirked. Go on, Volker. Tell us what to do. The young man began to short-circuit. Give orders him? He had never given an order in his life. That's not his job, especially when the boss is right there. Lion cut through his panic. 4 behind us, 3 to the right, 3 more on the left. And that's just who I can see.
They're using basic tracking formations, but there could be more up ahead.
Volker's panic meter shot into the red. Why are there so many of them? Lev advised. Calm down, Volker. Just breathe. Pretend this is a training exercise. Volker desperately followed his boss's advice, taking deep breaths. In and out.
Calm. Just stay calm. As his mind cleared, he held his breath and started to actually listen. An idea sparked. Boss, follow my lead. I have a plan. The trio began weaving their way through the massive crowd, staying as close as possible.
Volker steered them closer to the goblin being carried around on his ridiculous chair. They ducked and hid between the porters hauling massive crates. Volker whispered, "Lion, do you see them?" The boss replied, "It looks like we lost them. They wouldn't risk an attack while we're mixed in with the goblin's caravan." Lion gave Volker a nod of approval. "That was a great call, Volker," the subordinate asked. "So, are we heading the right way?" As they neared the meeting point, Wolfie declared, "We can make a run for it if things get hairy."
We're almost there, I can see the rock. But when they arrived, Lev's heart sank. Where is everyone?
The entire area was deserted. Volker froze, sensing danger. "Boss," he whispered, "look over there." An ambush. They were surrounded by armed thugs, their faces hidden by sinister masks. A man stood atop a high rock, a sword resting on his shoulder. "If you're looking for your friends," he sneered, "they won't be coming to help you." His eyes locked onto Lion. "You and I still have a score to settle." Lion glared at his opponent, his hand tightening on his weapon. The circle of brigands began to close in. The noose was shrinking. The boys stood back to back, ready for a fight. "Where are they?" Volker roared.
Where are our companions? Lev's voice cut through the tension. It doesn't matter now.
"Just like we practiced," Lev reminded him, his voice grim. "Watch my back, and we'll get through this." The leader on the rock simply pointed his sword. "Destroy them."
Elsewhere, a young man clutched a book, watching the world pass by, seemingly without a care in the world.
His eyes drifted to a recruitment poster at a bus stop, its bold letters catching his attention. "Arcadia Academy," it read. "Join the fight today, earn your citizenship through service." He stared at the poster, a dangerous and radical idea beginning to form in his mind. Back in the fight, Leo and Volker were a whirlwind of desperate action. Fending off the swarming thugs, they moved as one, a fortress of two against an overwhelming tide, protecting each other from every angle. That same young man had made his choice. He enrolled in the military academy, becoming a cadet to forge his own destiny. He poured everything he had into mastering hand-to-hand combat, relentlessly honing his skills day and night. Every spare moment was spent with the punching bag, his powerful kicks echoing through the training hall.
He pushed himself to the brink of collapse, sweat dripping from his chin, his body screaming in protest.
In workouts like this, he didn't stop until his muscles gave out or the punching bag was torn to shreds. Meanwhile, Lion was a blur of motion, his own martial arts putting the armed thugs to shame. Despite their numbers, they couldn't land a single solid hit. Lev's defense was like an iron wall. His spear danced, deflecting their heavy axes, Agnes, while finding openings to strike back with punishing force. His body was drenched in sweat, but his eyes burned with a ferocious hatred. He would never surrender. He fought off multiple opponents at once, their coordinated attacks failing against his incredible skill. But they kept pressing, a relentless wave of armed bodies. The odds were still overwhelmingly against him. In another time, another battle, the academy boy was now a soldier in full combat gear, laying down fire on the enemy. He charged into the fray, a true hero demonstrating unbelievable bravery on the front lines. But even a hero can be overwhelmed. He was suddenly surrounded, his firearm knocked from his hands. His strength was fading fast. Lion dropped to one knee, struggling to stay conscious as the enemy closed in. Gritting his teeth, he resisted with every last ounce of his will, barely holding on. Against all odds, the two friends had repelled the attack, leaving a field of groaning bodies in their wake. Their broken spear had held. Volker and Lev had refused to yield, their willpower proving stronger than steel. Their fighting spirit was truly indestructible. They had stared into the abyss and emerged victorious. The young soldier stared down at the blazing city, a sole survivor. "Enjoying the view, Private Vandersteen?" his commander asked.
We're out of time. Get to the transport, now. The boy turned to face his commander.
His gaze was calm, confident, and utterly exhausted. Meanwhile, Lev and Volker surveyed their own battlefield. They had won. Lion locked eyes with the enemy leader. "So, how? What are you waiting for? Your time is up." Hemos could only glare back, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated hatred. In a bustling crowd, a girl's friend grabbed her hand. "Come on, Rafa, faster, we're going to be late." But Rafa suddenly froze, her attention stolen by a man in the crowd. As he turned, she gasped and took a step back. "What are you staring at?" she snapped, trying to cover her shock. "Mind your own business." The man said nothing,
his gaze intense.
Her friend sighed dramatically. Honestly, you make friends everywhere you go. Rafa just scoffed. Whatever, we're almost there.
Strolling hand in hand through the crowd, the girl's attention was suddenly snagged by some kind of intense showdown.
Two men were clashing with spears, surrounded by the crumpled bodies of those they'd already defeated. A huge crowd had gathered to watch them. The girls were shocked, even a little scared by the brutality.
What kind of life or death battle was this? It was Leo and Hao, settling a bitter score with steel in their hands.
Leo was breathing heavily. This clearly wasn't his first fight of the day, but he held his ground as Hao attacked with renewed fury.
Hao screamed that Helmar was like a brother to him, and Leo had taken him away. He roared that he would never forgive him for that. Leo coldly stated that his so-called brother was an idiot who couldn't open his eyes to what was truly going on.
He warned Hao not to be a fool like him and to get out of there while he still could. But Hao was furious, refusing to listen to his rival. Hatred had completely clouded his vision. He only wanted revenge. Just then, Volker called out to his commander with a vital message. He thought he'd lost his bag, but a second later he found it. Volker shouted, "It's okay, I found it." Leo simply said he was counting on him. Volker swore he wouldn't let his commander down and that he could always be relied on. With that settled, the battle raged on. The clash between Leo and Hao continued, with neither man willing to retreat an inch. Leo couldn't stop this fight, and Hao didn't want to. The girls watched the confrontation with bated breath, unable to guess who would claim victory. One of the friends decided to play fangirl, shouting, "Yeah, go on, pretty boy, kick his butt." Rufa gave her a weird look. "Why are you cheering? I thought the guy with the longsword wasn't your type." Her friend just pointed. "I'm talking about him," Rufa deadpanned. "I know." This sudden enthusiasm was completely out of character for her friend. The girl scoffed at a nearby mercenary, saying, "As if a hired sword like you would understand anything." The man replied, "I understand more than you pampered guards." One of the girls got angry. "You got a death wish, old man," she threatened. Rufa told Runa to be quiet, then asked the man a question.
"Why do you think the guy with the spear will win? He's a pathetic commoner who barely has enough money for new clothes."
The man sighed. "You girls judge people by their coins, like a book by its cover. That's what happens when you spend too much time around silver and gold." Runa fumed, but Rufa wasn't listening. She was watching Leo with captivated eyes, trying to read his expression. She watched him battle, trying to peer into his soul. For a split second, their gazes locked across the dueling ground. They stared intently at each other. It was only for a moment, but the girl shrieked in surprise. Her friend asked what was wrong, but the mercenary just smirked. "Now you see it," Rufa stated with shock. "That commoner. He's going easy on him on purpose." She looked at Runa and asked, "Can't you see it?" Runa squinted but saw nothing. The young men continued their fierce battle. The fight was intense, but Hao couldn't defeat his opponent. Leo stared intently into Hao's eyes, trying to reason with his rival and convince him to stop fighting. At some point, Leo ducked, made a distracting maneuver, and swept his opponent off his feet. He went down hard. The guy flipped head over heels, dropping his weapon with a cry, and remained sprawled on the ground. The girl cried out in surprise. The mercenary explained, "It was an unequal battle. The spearman spent the whole fight studying his opponent and his movements. The one with the sword was just attacking him blindly." Hao struggled up to one knee. His opponent held the point of his spear right in front of his face. Leo told the young man to let go of his grudge. "And I will let you go today," Leo said, aiming his weapon at his opponent. "You are finished." Hao realized he couldn't get out of this alive. Hopelessness filled his eyes. The boy raised his head and looked at his opponent. A smirk spread across Hao's face. "No, Leo," he said. "It's you who is finished." All fear was gone from the young man's eyes. Dozens more of Hao's companions suddenly appeared, surrounding them. All of them were armed to the teeth. Leo sighed. "You still haven't learned anything, have you?" he said. "My offer still stands. I'm offering you a chance to surrender." Hao asked why he would ever surrender. Leo's voice turned cold. "Because I'm running out of reasons to let you and your friends live." Hao laughed and told Leo to look at the situation he was in. But suddenly, another sound filled the air. "What is that sound?" Hao asked. Leo just smiled. "That," he announced, "is the cavalry." A whole troop of soldiers ran toward the young man. All of Leo's warriors were charging to where their commander was fighting. The hired thugs with Hao knew what that meant. They had to run away immediately if they wanted to stay alive. Hao realized he had finally and completely lost. As his companions fled for their lives, he knew if he didn't follow their example, he was about to die. Leo casually tossed his opponent's sword into the air. "Thanks for the fight, Hao," he mocked. Hao was seething with anger, his goal unaccomplished. He considered himself a total loser. The girls and the mercenary watched Hao run away. He started a fight only to lose it spectacularly. The man said, That was cleverly thought out. The girl asked what he meant. The man replied, "The scarecrow used his horn to—" "Rally the others," someone yelled, while another screamed for backup. "Greyborn aren't supposed to be this smart," the girl insisted. The man countered, "Clearly these ones are. You have to give them credit for that." But the girl kept muttering under her breath. She refused to leave, her eyes locked on the young man, that warrior. The lion had certainly made an impression. The reinforcements finally arrived, cheering and clapping the lion and his deputy on the back. They were celebrating a hard-won victory. Just then, Lev noticed the girl watching him. For a second, their eyes met again. Rafa just couldn't look away from him, until her friend yanked her aside. One of the warriors reported, "Sir, I sent a squad to hunt down the attackers." The lion immediately ordered, "Call them back. If the goblins learn what happened here, we'll have a much bigger problem on our hands." His deputy asked, "Is that why you let him live?" "You could say that," Lev replied. "But it's over now." He then turned to Jem, asking, "Why weren't you guys at the rendezvous point?" Jem explained, "Verd's men started a brawl with Cancer's gang. We had to step in and play referee. So it wasn't a real fight," the lion mused. "But it was just enough to draw us out." "Ah, the pieces are finally falling into place," another man added. "The moment we heard that horn, we rushed to help." Lev nodded. "I hope Cancer's issues are resolved." "The second Rock and Hem showed up," the man said. "Verd's crew tucked their tails and ran." Lev simply replied, "Understood." Just then, the man who was talking to the girls earlier approached them. He had his eyes set on Lev. "Can I help you?" Lev asked politely. "The name's Goag," the man said, "and I just wanted to commend you on that spectacular fight." "I've been on countless campaigns," Goag continued, his eyes gleaming. "But I have never seen swordsmanship that skillful. I must know your technique." He puffed out his chest. "I've fought in many wars, across many lands." Lev cut in, turning to Jem. "Go track down some mushroom cider." "We can't be rude to our esteemed guest," he said with a smirk. Lev shook Goag's hand. "It seems we have a lot to discuss. In the beginning of time, John the All-Father battled the Wanderer of the Abyss, and he lost. The world plunged into an abyss of madness, but from a single drop of John's blood, a new god was born. Her name was Za. She gathered the remains of the fallen god and forced Dorn, the god of death, to resurrect John. As a reward, the All-Father granted Za the title of Greatest General. She embarked on a quest to reclaim the lands, stolen by the Abyss Wanderer, becoming known to all as the Goddess of War. It was Za who journeyed into the underworld to retrieve John's very soul. A speaker now declared, "And we too shall journey to the underworld to take back what is ours." "You were told this expedition was to clear out some caves," he boomed, "but that's only half the story. Our real goal is to find ancient treasure, a prize that lesser men are too terrified to claim. You are the chosen few. This isn't some mere expedition. This is a raid. We will descend, take what is ours by right, and return as legends. I don't care if you're scarecrows or Deca, Berg or Dos, or even goblins. Every single one of you who joins us will become a part of history, so I ask you to come with me, to fight to win. Triumph awaits." "For the glory of John," he roared. The crowd erupted, raising their weapons and chanting his name. Lev thought to himself, "Well, it's not the worst speech I've ever heard." Goag leaned in. "Bogu is not like his brothers. He's dangerously greedy and far too ambitious. He's the youngest son of the Jira chief. This expedition is his big chance to prove he's better than his siblings," Lev asked. "Do you know his true motive?" Goag continued. "The heir himself is leading the charge, doubling the recruits, and hiring mercenaries of all races. It's almost like he's preparing for an attack on someone. And there's more. We're going down, not up. So there's something deep in those caves that is incredibly important to him." "Your reasoning is sharp, kid," Goag admitted. "I'll ask my contacts." Lev nodded. "I'll do the same. The sooner we figure out what Bogu is really after, the better our chances of getting out of this alive." Elsewhere, Hemos kneeled on the ground, his eyes filled with shame as he faced Virgo. He was drowning in guilt. "Get out of my sight before I kill you myself," Virgo seethed, turning his back on the young man. "Oh," Virgo declared. "Hemos and his men are under your command as of today. If he wants to be a leader again, tell him to earn it." "But, sir, I just wanted revenge for Helmar," O pleaded. Virgo spun around, his face a mask of fury. "And what if you had succeeded? What if Bogu found out? How many of our heads would have rolled if the Prince of Jira demanded blood for your mistake? How many more would I have lost?" "I understand your anger," O, Virgo said, his voice softening slightly. "I feel it too, but now is not the time for vengeance." "Then when, boss?" O asked desperately. "What are we waiting for?" Virgo replied. "The dungeon is vast, and it hides many secrets. Be patient," the boss warned. "Our time will come." Meanwhile, Professor Gorza began her lecture.
Regarding the classification of goblinoids, in our world, there exist several major races, including the ones we see today.
After the great Anshard Empire shattered into countless fragments, new tribes, founded by the descendants of Ashard, began to rise. And so, this is how the goblinoid races came to be. First, the DS, the most advanced of them all, a race of traders, warriors, and navigators. But their glory days ended when the human Republic of Brum conquered them. Then you have the DEA race. They are mighty warriors, horsemen, and mercenaries, famed across the lands for their honor in battle. And while the Deka are goblinoids, they were never part of the old empire. The goblin tribes are the most numerous race. They spend their days waging endless internal wars. The strongest among them is the Jira tribe, who have even subjugated the lowly scarecrows. There's also a race called the Biburga, known for being exceptional hunters and trackers.
Their temperament is as foul as their breath, but thankfully, there aren't many of them. At the very bottom of the social ladder
are the scarecrows, but even among them, there's a strict hierarchy. The blue scarecrows are the nobles,
acting as middlemen between the goblin masters and the common folk. Many scarecrows also have a green tint. Thanks to a bit of ordinary goblin blood in their veins, you can spot the difference easily. Goblins are taller, and their
ears point straight up, but the Coborn are even lower than rock bottom. Though their ancestors were powerful,
shamans, they now toil away in the mines. They handle all the dirty work that even other scarecrows refuse to do.
Their people were enslaved by the Jira tribe generations ago, and they've been serving them ever since. Chapter 1, we find a group of young men staring intently at something. A certain young man seems unimpressed. With the offer on the table, he hangs his head low. Just then, a girl storms out of a tent, looking seriously annoyed. Not in the mood to talk, she steps outside for some air. That's when she spots an unfamiliar boy gazing into the distance. Without warning, the girl grabs our hero by the scruff of his neck. He definitely didn't see that coming. The boy, Volker, looks around, startled, trying to see who ambushed him. The girl simply drags him away without saying a single word. Soon, they arrive at a
cave, its entrance covered in rough vines. The girl offers him a trade food in exchange for medicinal
plants and various insects. So our guy starts explaining which mushrooms are safe and which are definitely not. Turns out, the meal they made was both delicious and healthy. Chapter 2, Volker tells his friend Lev and the other boys all about his strange day and his encounter with the DOS girl. After that, Volker began actively avoiding her, not wanting another surprise kidnapping. We see him standing in a clearing filled with glowing mushrooms, with one massive mushroom towering over him. Suddenly, the warrior girl appears, dragging a beast she caught by its tail. She was looking for Volker. With expert skill, Volker butchers the animal. He was a true hunter, and he shows her the proper way to do it. The girl listens, completely absorbed. As Volker prepares their meal, they talk with surprising ease. They're clearly interested in one another, chatting about all sorts of things. They share the food they cooked together, and it's incredible. The warrior girl savors the meal, having never tasted anything like it. Oh yes, romantic feelings are definitely starting to bloom. Chapter 3. Our young man is telling the girl about his childhood. She listens with fascination, finding his stories almost unbelievable. Hearing about a creature he used to eat, he decides to catch one for her. She eagerly helps him on his strange quest. Following the tracks, they find the creature's den. The girl draws her sword, ready for a fight. Later, Volker cooks the beast and offers her a taste. She hates it, instantly. She's never eaten something so disgusting in her life. But in that moment, the girl understood
just how difficult his childhood must have been. Later, as she bathes in a hot spring, our guy respectfully turns away, trying not to
peek. They take a leisurely stroll through the forest, totally engrossed in their conversation. The girl talks excitedly about something, and Volker listens intently. Then she places a hand on his back, and his heart practically leaps out of his chest. Nothing like this had ever happened to him before. As they part ways, they promise each other that they will absolutely meet again. The boy and girl head in opposite directions, both happy with their day together. Chapter 4.
The warrior girl is cooking for herself, while her friends gossip about her recent behavior. She's clearly uncomfortable.
Her mind wanders back to the young man. Volker certainly left a lasting impression. She's completely smitten, a faint blush on her cheeks. Her memories flash back to their moments together, how they first met, and the time they spent getting to know each other. Volker really liked her too, but he felt he wasn't good enough for her. So he started hiding. The girl was heartbroken and left, without seeing him again. What a tragic mess. His friend scolds Volker for being so heartless. He tells him that Girl has a soft spot for him, and here he is, acting like a total fool elsewhere. The Darks fight the Hings with pure grit. Courage is in their very blood. They won't be intimidated by some oversized monster. The warrior girl bravely charges a gigantic beast, her sword held steady. The heaving is defeated, bleeding on the ground. The girl has won this battle. Volker rushes to hug his. He gazed tenderly at his friend, overjoyed they had finally met. The girl, meanwhile, could hardly believe her eyes as the defeated monster lay broken at the bottom of the cave. Just then, Volker and his comrade arrived, ready to support the hounds. The girl looked up at Volker, a silent question hanging in her eyes. The young man held out a sword to her, its blade still marked with the monster's blood. "You are a magnificent warrior," he said. A soft blush appeared on her cheeks as a smile graced her lips. She was truly happy. While talking with the young man, she remembered her family was waiting. She was glad to see Volker again, just as his own friends were waiting for him. He gave the girl a final wave, genuinely happy to have met her. But a moment later, the young man was racked with unimaginable pain. He bit down hard on a piece of wood to keep from screaming, his eyes threatening to bulge from their sockets. The one called Lion assured him, "The wound on your leg will heal soon. When the crystal turns blue, bandage it and apply more newly to the burn. This will help." Neutralize the acid? Lion scanned their surroundings, assessing the grim aftermath. The young man asked, "How many casualties did we suffer today?" All around them, young warriors were nursing their injuries. The broken bodies of defeated Hings lay scattered nearby, Volker said. "I asked the healers to come, but they refused. They said they have no duty to care for the Reborn, unless a noble orders it." Lion scoffed. 2 months, 4 levels, and over 100 dead. The old men play us like pieces on a game board. Some things, it seemed, never changed. The young warrior's face soured. Lion was clearly fed up with this entire state of affairs. "And this blatant disrespect for his squad," Volker added. "The overseers have ordered us to start collecting the loot. They said not to waste any more time on the wounded." Lion just stared into the distance, his jaw tight with fury. More injustice. Who would care for the injured now? The young man wondered if this was really the time to be gathering treasure. He had long questioned why the goblins sent scarecrows into the mines. After all, they were weak and completely unsuited for life in the caves. Eventually, the young man discovered the truth. It was all because of the crystals, which the scarecrows used for light. The surface races used them for magic. But there was a serious catch. For any creature not adapted to magic, these raw crystals were pure poison. But not for the scarecrows. With their innate magical talent, they could handle the toxic crystals without a single worry. So that was the real game. They were being used as disposable labor in the mines, sent there by Jairus' tribe. The crystals had to be purified for anyone else to use. A process that was both difficult and outrageously expensive. But there was a new, cheaper way.
Earlier expeditions had discovered that the Hings could naturally process not only metal ore, but the luminous crystals as well.
They made the crystals safe, perfect for building their hives. Since then, expeditions were launched in the name of cleansing the mines. But in reality, it was all about collecting those precious crystals. At first, the Hings were left alone, but after the Great Hunt, everything changed. Now, both they and the Greyborn were fair game. In the heavy silence, Lev asked Rock and Hem, "How bad is it?" He could already sense the weight of the answer. Hem replied grimly. "We lost 10 tough guys," Rock added. "They died because we were rushed. Even a kid could have spotted that ambush if we'd scouted the area properly."
Hem sighed. "I just don't understand why we're here. This can't be just about some ore," Lev said. "Perhaps I know why,"
and gestured with his finger toward Virgo, who was approaching. He didn't look happy either. Oswald followed him, head down and seething. Rock glared at Virgo, not wanting this confrontation. His hand gripped his axe so tightly his knuckles turned white. Hem stared at Virgo with pure hatred. Rock muttered, "I know how you feel, but don't forget, there's a truce right now. For now, we are allies." Virgo casually greeted Rock. "Still angry about that test?" he asked. "It's been years, after all." Rock snarled, "You turned my best friend against me. You made me kill him." Virgo just shrugged, completely unbothered. "You still haven't learned anything. If I hadn't given him the opportunity, someone else would have. That's why your kind is always betrayed by your own." That was the last straw. Rock lunged, but Hem and Lion held him back.
"Boss, stop it," Hem yelled. Lev warned him. "It's not worth it. Virgo is provoking you on purpose. If you attack, they'll execute you."
Virgo remained perfectly calm, an evasive smile playing on his lips. Rock finally calmed down, realizing he'd been played. "I'm going to check on the boys," he growled. He looked at Lion and said, "You take care of this guy. Virgo shouted after him. You can meet me whenever it suits you. Rock, my doors will always be open. Rock didn't even turn around. He simply gave his opponent the middle finger, his rage now completely cold. Lion observed quietly. Virgo didn't come here just to provoke us. There has to be another reason. Virgo's smirk widened. Oh, I know the real reason you were all sent on this expedition so suddenly, he continued. The brothers are having a little showdown over who will become the next chief. The lion replied. That much was already clear. Virgo cornered Lev, his voice low and urgent. What's Bulu's brilliant plan to win this war? And why are we blitzing through these floors at the speed of light? Lev admitted he was dying to know himself. It cost us a mountain of gold and effort, but we finally got a lead. A place said to hold a mythical weapon forged by Ard himself. A warrior asked Volker why their boss was in such a foul mood. Volker claimed ignorance, suggesting they ask Jeem, who was on duty at the time. But the warrior pressed, insisting that Volker, being the commander's favorite, must know something. The troops were getting anxious about their leader's temper. Volker shot back. And since when did any of you start caring about the boss's feelings? The warrior stammered, trying to recall a single instance, but came up with nothing. That's what I thought, Volker scoffed. So stop stirring up trouble. You're right, the warrior conceded. I'm just worried he'll take his anger out on another goblin and drag us all into another war. Another warrior laughed. You're worried about that, after seeing the boss effortlessly crush every fight. Mulg, you should learn to stay out of conversations that don't concern you. The first warrior snapped. This is none of your business. But Ghoul couldn't resist chiming in. The boss is definitely hiding something from Volker. I bet Lion prefers grumpy old geezers. Like Jeem over you. Mulg grabbed Ghoul by the hair, yanking his head back. Stop flapping that tongue of yours. The last
Thing we need are your baseless rumors. Ghoul surrendered immediately. All right, Volker can relax. My lips are sealed.
With a grin, Ghoul declared he'd just find his girlfriend and cry on her beautiful lap instead. Suddenly, a gruff voice boomed. When are you little gray runts going to shut your mouths? Roga growled. This isn't a picnic. It's a reconnaissance. Mission. Volker quickly apologized. Sorry, Roga. We'll be quiet. Ghoul's just a loudmouth, that's all. Roga glared. If we get discovered because you can't keep quiet, I'll personally feed you to the hyenas. Mulg muttered too. Volker. Don't let him push you around. The Bergs are just like Roga. Born grumpy, another mercenary added. It's like having an itch you can never, ever scratch. That's what being a Berg must feel like. He snickered. I'd be cranky too if I had a nose that big, smelling my own farts all day. Just then, the man fell silent, sensing something ahead. The expedition's scouting party, 6 warriors in total, had arrived. Gag whistled. Whoa, the 5th level looks way better than I imagined. I can't believe a place like this exists underground. It was breathtaking, unlike anything they had ever witnessed. A vibrant world thriving deep beneath the earth. What are those hairy things? One of the warriors asked, pointing. Hairy sponges? This level is crawling with them. You'll find them. At every turn. Jeem told me about them. Ghoul immediately asked. Are they edible? Mulg grunted. Why don't you? Go find out, but Jeem warned they'll stomp anyone who gets too close to their herd. Ghoul backed off. Never mind then. Volker turned to their guide. Goag, how much further until we reach the rendezvous point? Goag replied, thoughtfully. On this kind of terrain, it's hard to say for sure, but I know we're heading in the right direction. Ban looked at a strange device in his hand. It shows 1,230 paces to the next recon point. We've traveled only 3,478 steps. If we follow the creek, we have about 6,000 more. To go, Volker's eyes widened. What is that in your hands? Ban a talking box? Ban chuckled. It doesn't talk, it just counts. Our steps. Roga grunted impatiently. Enough chatter, let's move. Volker, his curiosity piqued, asked, Where did you get it? Ban explained. I got it during a battle with the pink-skinned men in the east. I acquired it. From one of their druids. Volker repeated the words, trying to commit them to memory. Pink-skinned? Druids? Ban looked surprised. You don't know, that's right. Your tribe has never left these caves. It's no big deal, Volker said defensively. There's just a lot I haven't learned yet. But Ban shook his head. It is a big deal. How can you stand living in this filth for so long, with no sun, no sky, only holes in the rock? Volker's eyes hardened. I don't know what you're talking about, he stated with conviction. One day, we will be free. But to earn that freedom, we must become stronger. That is what Lion taught me. Ban had heard whispers about Lion from Goag, but he hadn't paid them much mind. Now, he thought, maybe I should get to know this guy, Volker suggested. Talk to my boss. You could learn a lot from him. For now, tell me more about these pinkskins and druids. The pinkskins, Banspat, are stinking, arrogant fools who've infested the East like rats. Turn any corner. And they're there, some time ago. We clashed with them. There was no avoiding it. The pinkskins stole our pigs, so we had to politely ask for them back. With our axes.
But then a group of druids showed up and demanded we stop the fighting. Druids are like
priests, I guess. They're always trying to end wars. It's their code. They never fight, only defend themselves. And preach about peace. That's when Ban spotted the strange box. He offered to trade for it, and the druids accepted. Ban grinned. It was the best deal I ever made. This little box has saved me countless hours. Volker nodded. Sounds useful. I could use one of those myself. Ban added. If you ever win your freedom and travel, and you run into them.
They're a harmless pink-skinned people, apparently. We're supposed to respect their religion and traditions. And in return, they'll play nice.
Gazik snorted in disgust. You can't be serious. The Republic of Brazilian will wipe them from existence. The others grumbled their grim agreement. Volker looked completely lost. What in the nine hells are you guys talking about? He didn't understand a single word. A bunch of arrogant skirt-wearers. Bun spat. They march all over the place with their banners, burning every temple in every land they conquer, and they force their faith on everyone else. Bun's voice dripped with contempt. Pinko scoundrels. I'd never work for them again, no matter the pay. Volker blinked. Wait, you worked for them? Bun confirmed it with a curt nod. This clan of mercenaries has worked for them all. In our time, we've pretty much worked for everyone. Volker's eyes widened. So, you guys are mercenaries on this expedition. Bunk and Gaz shared a loaded glance. It's not quite that simple. Bun hedged. It all depends on how you look at the situation.
A while back, we were hired to help Bulu's younger brother against the Cur, but the whole thing turned out to be a setup.
We were trapped and completely outnumbered. We fought like demons. But we never stood a chance. That's when Bulu made his grand entrance. He offered us a deal, Bun explained. We help him with Bog, and he helps us settle our score with Jira. And that's how we ended up in this mess.
Bun still wasn't convinced. I'd bet my life savings Bulu was the one who told the Cur where to find his brother.
We only took the deal because we couldn't risk another dissatisfied client. After that disaster with the Bilam, our reputation was shot.
We trained soldiers and fought in a few clashes, but we're still seen as unreliable because of that one screw-up.
The Republic was vicious. They destroyed temples, libraries, schools, everything. They systematically erased the culture of anyone they conquered. And after a few years' boom, you get colonies that are completely loyal to Brazilian, ready to serve. Mule shuddered. That sounds absolutely horrifying. He looked at Volker. Should I tell Lev about this? Volker shook his head. I will. He suddenly stopped, his eyes fixed on the horizon.
What's Roga up to over there? Goag squinted. Where is he going? It looked like their tracker had found something.
All 6 warriors followed Roga's intense gaze. Down below, they saw it. A caravan of Hings, stretching as far as the eye could see. That's not a caravan, Gog breathed, his face pale. That's a full-blown army. They couldn't possibly go down there. Ghoul was practically trembling. As darkness fell, the small detachment posted sentries for the night, their nerves on edge.
They're heading straight for the main expedition, Hem hissed. An entire army of Hings. Worse yet, the monsters had just spotted their scouting party.
They're coming right for us, Gog yelled. Volker's mind raced. They're planning a surprise attack, Ghoul squeaked. So what are we supposed to do? In a moment of pure panic, Volker raised a horn to his lips and blew.
What are you doing? Ghoul shrieked. Goag snatched the horn from Volker's hands. Are you actively trying to get us all killed? He roared. We have to warn the others. Volker defended himself. The Hing army is on its way, even if they attack us. It's worth it.
Bun's eyes blazed with fury. I will personally murder you for an entire hour. Ghoul jumped between them. Wait, Hings hunt by smell, not sound. They probably didn't even hear it. It's no big deal. Bun paused, turning to the tracker. Roga, did any of them change course? Roga took a long sniff of the air. Can't say for sure, but it doesn't look like it. A collective sigh of relief went through the group. Looks like the kid was right, Bun muttered, sheathing his weapon. But next time, newbie, a little warning would be nice. You're not the only one out here. Volker just nodded, completely oblivious. No offense taken. I've already forgotten about it. Bun ignored him, all business. We have to get back and warn the expedition, now. The horn might tell them something's wrong, but they won't know the whole picture. Judging by those numbers, it's going to be a slaughter. The sentinels looked at each other, wondering how they'd ever make it back. Bun turned to Roga. You're our best tracker. Think you can guide us back without those bugs sniffing us out? Roga tapped his impressively large nose. My big nose will try its best.
I'll use my amazing sense of smell to get us past them unnoticed. Bun cracked a rare smile. Get us back alive, and I'll treat that nose to all the mushroom meat it can drink.
Roga's eyes lit up. Now, those are terms I can get behind. I'll do my best. And with that, the Sentinel Squad returned to the expedition. Following Roga through uncharted, dangerous paths, the tracker led them on, but the young warriors were exhausted. They had been on the road for far too long. They needed a break, and badly. Roga finally called a halt, and everyone collapsed in a heap, utterly spent. Ghoul could barely breathe. I have no strength left. I can't go any further. This is absolute torture. We'll take a short break, then move on, Volker said. Ghoul apologized, his voice filled with regret. Volker was confused. What do you mean? I never should have convinced you to join the Lion Squad, Ghoul whispered. Volker offered a weak smile. Ghoul, don't worry about it. I'm fine. Because of you, I was finally able to say no to my parents. I would have been sent on this expedition anyway. Only I wouldn't have been with my friends. It's because he trained him, Ghoul reasoned, which is why Volker pretty much owed him his life. He joked that, looked it that way, Volker was definitely in his debt. Maybe it would make him run slower next time. The hearty meal definitely helped diffuse the tension, letting them relax for a moment. But Bon pointed out, he didn't hear any response from Volker's horn. Volker admitted he hadn't heard anything either. Perhaps the other group was too far away. Bon offered a darker theory. Maybe they couldn't answer. Or maybe what they found wasn't the only hiving unit. In that case, the other units might already be dead. Volker disagreed. There would have been a huge commotion. I heard nothing like that. Ghoul added that there was still a chance. If that's the case, Volker said, we need to move faster. Just then, hivings appeared nearby. The party hadn't seen the sentries, but the sentries had definitely seen them. Bon quietly muttered to Ghoul, looks like that little kitten's about to get declawed. Ghoul asked which kitten. He was talking about, Bon shot back. The one that's somehow louder than you? If that's even possible. Mulg wondered why. These hivings were here. Maybe they're guarding something. Hivings aren't smart enough to protect anything. Volker dismissed. He didn't know their purpose, but this was the only path to reach the expedition. To get there before the hivings did, they had to get past them somehow. Ghoul laid out their two terrible options. Either one person distracts the bugs, or we all fight them together. They had to choose. Volker and Mulg immediately started weighing the grim possibilities. Both options were awful and incredibly risky. Volker finally spoke up. I'm the fastest. I'll draw the hivings away while the rest of you
go alert the expedition. Ghoul, ever the jokester, quipped. Just try to run a little slower. Okay. Volker, however, was dead serious.
He gave a firm nod. This is no time for jokes. We have to act now. Ghoul then asked why Volker would choose such a dangerous option for himself. With resolve, Volker replied, I don't want to see my friends die before. I do. He hoped he could outrun the hivings. Mulg countered that plan. The hivings are faster than us. You won't stand a chance. Of escaping, he suggested a better idea. Let the mercenaries distract the bugs. Bon readily agreed. Yeah, Ghoul and I can handle one hiving. Volker pointed out the flaw. There are 3 of them. They'll eventually come after all of us anyway. Hivings hunt by smell, so the only way forward was to lure them far away with a strong scent. That would buy the others time to run. Volker
confidently stated he was the man for the job. The hivings remained at a fork in the road, patrolling
the area and sniffing the air. Goodbye, Volker told his team. I'll do it. Make sure you warn the Chi expedition. But Roga placed a hand on Volker's head, his face etched with worry. What is it? Volker asked. Roga spoke plainly. We know. You're not a coward. You don't have to be a fool to prove it. Volker tried to justify himself. I'm not being a fool, I'm just trying to protect my comrades, Bon chimed in. The big guy's right. You have nothing to prove to us. We all approve of your
courage, but you need to stay alive for the great deeds to come, Bon declared. We will all fight together.
A heavy silence fell over the warriors. They all knew this was the only way. Volker, moved, thanked them all for their support. Roga wasted no time. I've got the one on the left. The warrior was already coiled to strike. Bon stated that he and his partner would take the one in the middle. Ghoul's eyes went wide. Wait, you're not joking, are you? Roga grunted. Fight, or be, their next meal? Volker tried to encourage Ghoul. Remember your training? We've practiced this a dozen times, Ghoul whined. But in training, I had a slingshot. Mulg cut in. We can do this. We outnumber them. Just then, the hivings
caught their scent and braced for battle. As promised, Roga instantly charged, wounding one of the beasts.
Green blood sprayed from the beetle. The mercenaries descended on the second hiving, their teamwork flawless, giving them vulnerable spots. The warriors skillfully hammered their opponent with a flurry of strikes. But in the chaos, Volker suddenly stumbled and fell hard. A warrior yelled, "Volker, watch out!" Mulg shouted to Ghoul. "Stay focused! Volker can handle." Himself, Ghoul, the smallest of the group, was trembling with fear. He was terrified they weren't going to make it. Mulg, dodging and weaving, attacked his opponent relentlessly. "Ghoul, help me!" The hiving was proving to be ferocious. Tears of terror streamed down Ghoul's face as he clutched his spear. Volker was still on the ground. Something was seriously wrong. Mulg continued his assault, his spear a blur of motion. His opponent couldn't land a single blow. Lying there, Volker's thoughts raced. "I can't let my friends die." He had to get up. He had to keep fighting. The hiving snapped its massive jaws right in front of Mulg, who dodged just in time. As the fight raged on, Ghoul let out a fierce battle cry and launched himself from above. He swung his spear high over the monster's head, then plunged it deep into the Mishao.
"Hiving's vital spot, I did it," he screamed. Mulg praised him. "Nice one, now circle around to the right."
The two warriors attacked the wounded hiving in perfect sync. The insect stood no chance against their
coordinated assault. The hiving was losing its strength fast. The injury was critical, and it had lost too much blood. It barely fought back.
With a final, brutal swing of their weapons, the young warriors finished their foes, spraying blood across the battlefield. Ghoul roared in a frenzy, refusing to stop. His strikes raining down again and again, Volker grabbed his comrade's shoulder, forcing him to stop. The creature was already dead. Exhausted, Ghoul turned. Did I do it?" he gasped. Volker gave a firm nod. "You did well, Ghoul. You did damn well." The three defeated creatures were proof. The whole team had pulled through. "We made it," Volker declared. "Now, we can finally warn the main expedition." And so, the expedition pressed onward, their path laid out before them. But up ahead, scouts spotted a massive army of monsters. The two forces were on a collision course. At the vanguard of the expedition, sentries kept watch. They were the elite Greyborn, chatting casually, completely unaware
that a titanic clash with a monstrous horde was looming just over the horizon. Further back, Rafa and Runa walked together.
Vicious mosquito bites tormented them, making their entire bodies itch beneath their heavy armor. Rafa awkwardly tried to help Runa scratch an impossible spot under her plate. "Ah, right there, thanks." Runa sighed. Runa grumbled. "Seriously, who thought armored bodysuits were a good idea in a jungle? They're totally impractical." Rafa smirked. "If you want better gear, you'll have to become the commander's personal maid. Time to use your charms." Runa made a face. "Ew, gross, I'd rather get eaten alive by bugs." Rafa laughed. "Well, problem solved then." "You're my only ray of sunshine in this gloomy hellscape," Runa declared dramatically. "That's why I love you, bestie." Rafa smiled. "Once we escape this jungle, everything will feel brighter." But Runa wasn't convinced. "Don't get your hopes up. I hear level 6 is even worse. How could it be anything else?" Rafa said with a sigh. "More death, more bugs. It's what they want." Runa's eyes drifted away, a sly grin on her face. "Speaking of what you want, your favorite is right over there." Both girls glanced at the man known as Lion. He walked with a calm, commanding presence. Cool and unfazed by the heat, a blush crept up Rafa's cheeks, which only made her snap at her friend. "He is not my favorite." "Oh, really?" Runa teased. "Then why do you bring him up every chance you get?" I don't," Rafa stammered. "He's just a skilled fighter, that's all." "It doesn't mean I like him, or even trust him," she added quickly. Runa raised an eyebrow. "What's not to trust? They're disciplined, skilled, and they've been nothing but nice to us." "Exactly," Rafa countered. "They're a little too nice. Something's not right."
"He has the scent of a merchant, not a mercenary," Runa scoffed. "A merchant? Did you not just see him fight?"
"No merchant moves like that," Rafa frowned. "That's what bothers me the most. Who can be a master of the spear and the ledger?" "You're completely obsessed," Runa giggled. "Just go talk to him." Rafa's face turned beet red. She was flustered, unable to think of a single thing to say. To change the subject, Runa began. "You know, this reminds me of when I used to guard the piggies back home."
There was this super cute farm boy. But Rafa suddenly froze, her hand flying up to silence her friend.
Her playful expression vanished, replaced by alarm. "Runa, what's wrong?" her friend whispered. "Shh, something's up ahead." The column of warriors halted. Lion was already moving, shouting. "Monsters are attacking everyone. Form up now." Rafa's sword was out in a flash. Her voice was steel. "Get ready. We protect the master at all costs. She scanned the trees ahead, her eyes sharp and focused. Bogu, their beastkin companion, sniffed the air, his large nose twitching. What is it, Bogu? She asked. A strange smell. He growled. Something's not right. It might be the scent of Helblings. A battle is coming. Their faces grew taut with tension. Their focus was absolute. Their bodies coiled and ready to defend their charge. Suddenly, a warrior screamed. Something white and sticky shot from the trees, yanking him into the canopy.
What in the world was that? Runa yelled, pointing upwards. A wave of panic spread through the ranks. Ambush!
They were surrounded. The warrior was tangled in a massive spider's web, cast by giant, monstrous arachnids. A spider lunged, trying to ensnare more soldiers in its sticky silk. The men braced, shields forward. These things were enormous, their sheer force nearly overwhelming the shield wall. Runa desperately parried with her sword. Aim for their legs, Rafa bellowed, spotting a weakness. It's their most vulnerable point. She demonstrated by driving her blade deep into a spider's joint. Black blood gushed from the wound. Following her lead, the other warriors crippled the beast's legs. It collapsed, unable to move. The soldiers pressed their advantage with deadly skill. Rafa stepped before the downed monster and raised her sharp blade for the final blow. With all her strength, the girl slammed her weapon into the spider blood, and ichor flew everywhere as the beast was defeated. Rafa yelled to her friend that they had to go help the others, but Runa just stared at her, saying she should probably wash off first. Otherwise, she'd get terrible burns. Rafa glanced at herself, insisting it didn't burn. Right before the girl complained about a headache, and in the next moment, Rafa collapsed face first onto the ground. Her last thought was a curse on her useless armor. Her father had been lost in a violent storm, and the village head's son had tried to assault her sister. In response, her father chopped off his hand. When a tribal elder offered a choice, cut off his own arm or fight a warrior, her father chose battle. It was the fiercest fight of his life, and he lost. The price for his actions was death or slavery for the family.
For the next 3 generations, but the chief, weary of bloodshed, simply banished them instead.
In their second week of wandering, they stumbled upon Jira's troop. There were far too many to fight. Her uncle died protecting them. Her mother and sister were sold off to a pleasure house. Her clan was considered a dark, unenlightened legacy. But they were born to fight. They had trained their entire lives for a moment like this. Rafa thought her destiny had finally arrived.
But it turned out her story wasn't over. The girl awoke, trapped inside a massive web. She was completely paralyzed. A voice told her that if she knew what was good for her, she wouldn't move. Who's there? She asked, her vision a total blur. The same voice calmly told her the paralysis would wear off soon, and that she should conserve her strength. None of this made any sense. Where am I? What happened? She demanded, desperate for answers. She was asked what she remembered last. Rafa recounted the battle with the creatures, and how they had won. How many did you kill? The girl asked her unseen companion. The voice replied that Leo took down 4, while he and Cancer got 3. The other warriors were webbed to the wall right beside them. It looked like Virga had also killed 3. Virga was as composed and ice-cold as ever, his face a mask of indifference. He remarked that Himal was, as always, being exceptionally polite to the ladies. Himal instantly told Virga to shut his mouth. Virga calmly shot back that Raku should do a better job teaching his pets some manners. Himal retorted that once he was free, he'd teach Virga some manners himself. As their bickering continued, Rafa realized almost the entire expedition had been captured. The man called Lion noted that not everyone was there, only the ones who got spider blood on them. The girl let out a sigh of relief. Thank the gods, she thought, as her senses slowly returned. The lion, not far from her, asked if she was happy her big, hairy boss was okay. The girl snapped back, telling the young man to worry about himself for a change. She declared she couldn't care less if the monsters ate her boss, as long as her own girls were safe. Then she wondered aloud if maybe they weren't going to be eaten after all. It was a foolish hope. Lev admitted he hoped so too, but he doubted the spiders went to all this trouble just for a simple snack. He then told her to look around and describe what she saw. Rafa scanned the area. I see you, and everyone else. Then, something impossible caught her eye. There were rocks, floating in the air. How could that be, Himal? Pointed out that it was exactly what he'd been trying to tell them.
Virga grumbled that he was starting to fear for the future of their race if Himal didn't shut up. The warriors stared at the floating stones. At the 7th level, the laws of nature simply stopped working. Himal said that was impossible, utterly stunned. Virga dryly noted it was very possible, and suggested Himal try to get a little smarter. They had been led deep into enemy territory. But they're just bugs, Himal protested. They can't be this smart. Rafa guessed it was probably just their instincts. Lev doubted that. Was it instinct that let them ambush and capture half their leadership? No. They had been careless. They had underestimated their foes, and now they were probably about to be served as the main course for the queen. Himal and Virga had to agree. So, what now? They had to find a way out of this mess. Virga told the girl to relax. They already had a plan. He looked over at Lev, saying he had no doubts about the young man's abilities. Lev just winked in response. Virga pressed again, asking Lev if he truly had a plan. He said he could see it in his eyes, that he'd already thought of something. Lev asked Virga if his paralysis had faded yet. Virga nodded, confirming he felt much better. He could move his arms and legs now. Lev replied that was good. Then he could fully experience whatever the creatures had in store for him. A stunned silence fell over the group as they all stared at the lion. Virga asked him what he meant by that. Lev just smirked and said, I have no plan. You can't count on me. Himal sighed dramatically. So we're doomed. Wonderful. Leo agreed, a grim smile on his face. Looks that way, he said, before Lev added. At least Virgo can finally close his last case. Right before those things devoured them both. Vero, however, was confused. What last case are we even talking about? Lion explained that, according to the story, Virga had a nasty habit of smacking Himal on the head. Because of this, he continued. Himal completely cut ties with Virga, but that wasn't the worst of it. If Himal knew what Virga's cronies were saying, he would have lost his mind. Himal was completely floored by Lion's words. He'd never heard any of this. Virga, he roared. I will have my revenge. He swore he wouldn't let this insult stand. You're just a coward, hiding in the shadows. Virga scoffed. I don't even need my hands to deal with a weakling like you. For what felt like an eternity, they hurled insults, each promising to utterly destroy the other. Their bickering finally caught someone's attention. The web trembled from the noise. Annoyed, several spiders began crawling toward the source of the disturbance. As the girl listened to their ridiculous lovers' quarrel, Lion called out to her. Rafa, he began calmly. I'm getting us out of here. Stay low so the monsters don't spot us. The girl stared at him, completely surprised. She thought he was just winging it. Of course I have a plan, he smirked, and it requires a very loud distraction. Just then, she noticed a tear forming in the cocoon Lion was in. The hole widened, and soon, Lion himself emerged. With a sharp knife in hand, he moved to free Rafa. He worked with swift, practiced motions, slicing through the thick webbing. Once they were both free, they saw the giant insects approaching. They leaped to the ground below, but the girl lost her footing and tumbled hard as a spider closed in, on the still arguing Himal and Virga. The two warriors instantly froze, their squabble forgotten. It's hard to move, the girl stammered, getting to her feet. It's fine, the guy said coolly, pointing to a stash of weapons nearby. Pick one you like, Lion instructed. I'll draw the bug's attention. You free the others. Rafa was skeptical. And how will you do that? She asked. He gave her a look. Were you not paying attention? The laws of physics are optional here. With that, he jumped, hovering effortlessly in midair. So that's why the rocks were floating. Rafa watched in awe as Lion. The stones, and the monsters all began to tumble through the air. What's physics? She muttered to herself. Then she shook her head. Never mind that now. There were others to save. The girl freed a man in red, who immediately jumped down. Rafa pointed. Grab a weapon and help, if you value your life. She then turned to Virga. Can you stand? The warrior nodded grimly. I can, he then added. Thank you for freeing me last. Virga leaned on her shoulder as she helped him move. Rafa explained. I was waiting for the monsters to move further away. Besides, she admitted, I wasn't sure you'd leave Himal alive if I freed you sooner. Himal looked away, clearly offended. You wound me, Virga said with a dry smile. I'm a practical man. Himal makes an excellent meat shield. So they were both thinking it. The man in red called out, How many have you freed? The girl quickly counted. 18 of us, Virga mused. Against 3 monsters, this is more than enough. But Himal corrected him. It's a lot more than 3 now. He gestured for everyone to look. Just as he spoke, Red and Lion clashed with a new wave of insectoids. The creatures were relentless. More of them are coming, Rafa screamed, her voice filled with panic. She spotted a warrior in trouble, pinned against a rock. A monster advanced on him, its terrifying mandibles clacking. With a battle cry, Rafa leaped at the bug. She swung her sword with all her might, bringing the blade down hard on her foe. She sliced off one of the creature's legs, instantly drawing its furious attention. The warrior she'd saved scrambled away. Help me, she yelled after him. Now she was the monster's primary target. But the man just kept running. I have a family, he cried, disappearing into the chaos. Rafa was on her own, facing a monster twice her size. She desperately thrust her sword into its massive body, but its hide was too thick. The bug swiped, sending her flying. Her sword slipped from her grasp as she crashed to the ground, far from her only weapon. She had to get to it. She had to hurry. Rafa reached out, her fingers just inches from the hilt. But it was too late. The monster grabbed her, preparing to sink, its jaws into her flesh. A scream tore from her throat. The creature's face was almost touching hers. Tears streamed from her eyes as she screamed for help, refusing to die like this. In the next instant, the beetle's grip loosened. She broke free, confused. Then she saw him. Lion stood there, having thrust his spear directly into the monster's eye. The creature collapsed, struck dead. The young man had saved her in the nick of time. "Sorry," he said, breathing heavily. "I was almost late." Rafa could only look at him with gratitude. He had just saved her life, but the beetle was still twitching in its death throes. "Is it still alive?" Lion muttered in disbelief. He climbed onto the beast's back and began to strike again, making absolutely sure it was finished. The girl watched, captivated. In her eyes, Lion was the bravest warrior she had ever seen. Then there was a sickening crunch, and something else emerged. The creature burst forth. The girl squeezed her eyes shut, throwing her hands up to shield herself. But the young man was already on it, mauling the giant insect. It thrashed in pure agony. Then, with a final shudder, the beetle stopped moving, laying in a pool of its own ichor. The lion had finished his hunt. He left the bug's corpse and rushed to the girl's side. Hem was already there. "How is she?" Leo asked. Hem held Rafa in his arms. She was completely out of it. "Don't worry," Hem told Leo. "I've got her," Leb chimed in, asking if she was even alive. "She's fainted," Hem replied. "Arms broken, but all things considered, she'll live." The lion grinned, saying, "Looks like I owe our crazy goddess another one." Hem scoffed. "You're getting soft, lion. You don't usually bother with goblins like this." "I have my reasons," the lion retorted. He asked Hem to look after her while he went to help the others. The young man was about to leave, when Hem suddenly called out to him. Leo stopped, turning back with an impatient look. "I don't have time for this." "What is it?" "Hem, you're the leader, lion. I'm the fighter," Hem stated simply. "So you can take care of her yourself." With that, the lion hoisted Rafa onto his shoulders. As Hem departed, Leo called out, "Don't you dare blame me if she dies on my watch." Hem just waved. "Don't you worry, boy. I'll definitely be back," he shouted over his shoulder, "right after I've had a little fun." And by fun, he meant the colossal beast standing right in front of him. A gigantic beetle was busy slaughtering its prey. Blood was everywhere. A fallen Reborn warrior lay nearby, his life draining into the dirt. A squad of warriors stood before this monstrosity. It was a massive, malevolent creature, but they stood firm, weapons raised, ready to strike down this evil. A girl looked at Hem with wide eyes, calling out his name. "What's wrong, Shim?" he asked. "Why aren't you using your magic?" "I tried," she cried. "But that berserker over there is blocking my path." She pointed a trembling finger at a man clad in red. The red warrior roared, "My name is Drog Grierson, son of Milk Champion of the Western Hills, and this beast will die by my hand." Hem simply shoved the man aside. "Get on with your magic," he barked at the girl. Drog sputtered. "You treacherous fool! How dare you!" Ignoring him, the shaman girl began her chant. "Oh, great guardian of the heavens and seas, hear our prayers, grant us your grace, that we may crush our enemies." With a final word, the girl hurled a pendant from her hand. It flew through the air, struck the insect, and exploded in a blinding flash of light. Hem watched intently. It worked, he thought, but the bug was still standing. He quickly tried to calculate how much power it would take to kill it. "Guess we're doing this the old-fashioned way," he muttered. The warriors charged, axes raised, letting out a unified battle cry. They were filled with an unquenchable desire to slay the monster. But the beetle was incredibly strong, and it wouldn't be an easy fight. Ham's first strike failed. He swung his axe again, shouting curses at the beast, giving it everything he had. Suddenly, the monster did something that shocked both him and Drog. After a quick, hostile glance at each other, the two fighters resumed the battle. The two warriors stood shoulder to shoulder, facing the giant beetle as it gnashed its terrifying jaws. Its eyes burned with hunger, seeing them as nothing more than a light snack. "Red go around to the left," Hem shouted, but he never finished his sentence. "I am Drog Grierson, son of Milk," the man bellowed, pushing Hem away as he charged forward. "What are you doing, you idiot?" Hem roared. The insect swatted them both aside with a single, powerful leg. They flew a considerable distance. From afar, the lion calmly watched the clash unfold. He reached for his spear, thinking he should intervene, but then he set it down. There was little he could do right now. He decided it was better to wait. Just then, Rafa coughed, slowly coming to. The girl rested her head on the young man's shoulder, seemingly still half asleep. When this is over, Lev thought, We need to find a healer. He looked down at Rafa, assessing her condition. A shattered arm, several broken ribs, and a concussion. He'd given her talic root to numb the pain, but they couldn't delay proper treatment. The young man remembered Hem's words. Too soft, he'd said. You don't usually take care of goblins like this. The guy sighed, hoping that after all this, she might see him in a better light. Though who knew what was really going on in her mind? The battle was a disaster. The monster was unbeatable. Everyone was running for their lives in a chaotic retreat.
Even the so-called son of milk. The shaman desperately asked Sean, "How do we stop that thing?" Sean could only reply, "I have no idea."
Drog was fleeing, but his eyes still blazed with anger as he screamed. I am Drog Grierson, son of milk. We know, the girls shouted in unison, waving for him to just shut up and run. Then a new plan formed. They would lure the bug to the cliff's edge. They'd stand over the precipice, and the moment it charged, they would scatter. Maybe. Just maybe. The fall would be enough to kill it. Drog, the shaman, and Sean took their positions over the abyss.
With their backs against a cliff, the warriors faced their doom. The monstrous hang crept closer, its shadow swallowing them whole.
The creature's massive jaws were just inches away. The shaman whispered desperately. So, any bright ideas? It opened its foul mouth, ready for a human-sized snack. The warriors stared in horror. There was absolutely nowhere left to run. Then, suddenly, a man came flying past with the rocks. It was completely unexpected. Where did he even come from? Himal blinked, trying to regain his senses. He was totally disoriented. That hibbling had knocked him out cold. Looking down, the warrior saw his companions. They were trapped on the edge of a cliff, facing a colossal hang. The beast was getting way too close for comfort. They were pinned, with a long fall behind them and certain death in front. This was a seriously hopeless situation. Himal's mind raced. He had to help his friends, and fast. My axe, he thought. Wait, where did my axe go? The warrior knew he had to improvise, and there was no time to lose. He immediately turned his attention to a nearby floating rock. Well, that'll have to do, he figured. Down below, the warriors could already see the disgusting saliva dripping from the insect's mouth. It was anticipating an easy meal. The beast let out a deafening roar, and the shaman squinted, shielding herself. The stench from its mouth was unbearable, but in the next moment, the hind was struck. A huge rock slammed right onto its head. The impact completely crushed its skull. The shaman peeked through her fingers, witnessing a miracle she never expected to see. A very, very dead hind lay before the warriors. Its legs were splayed out in every direction, and on its head sat a huge, bloody stone. The insect's foul blood was splattered everywhere. Just then, the red-haired man finally snapped out of his terror. He grabbed his axe, trying to look heroic, and started hacking at the corpse. Remember my name? He bellowed. Sean just rolled his eyes. I guess the gods decided to save us, he muttered. The shaman looked up, hearing a noise from above, and saw Himal. He was leaping gracefully from rock to rock. The girl finally understood who their true savior was, and where that giant stone came from. Red climbed on top of the defeated hind, raised his axe high, and screamed his name for all to hear. Of course he did. Just then, Leo ran up, carrying an unconscious Rafa on his shoulders. Red immediately pointed at him and shouted, Look, everyone! The coward finally decided to show up. At that exact moment, Red received a powerful kick to the back from Himal. Watch your tongue, you wretch, the warrior growled. If you value your life, that young man and that girl saved all of us. Sean nodded in agreement. He's right. If not for them, we'd all still be marinating in cocoons, waiting to become monster food. Drog, you need to show some respect. But Drog just snapped back at Sean, telling him he should be groveling in the eastern lands, bowing before the pink-skinned. Sean scoffed. I don't grovel for anyone. I was a gladiator before this. And even before that, I was the lord of the Boros Seas. Red, ever the quick thinker, retorted. The only lords around here are the invading pinks. Sean smirked. If they all behave like you, they won't be lords for very long. Drog then proclaimed a truly unique statement. I am one of a kind. I am Drog Grierson, son of Milk Champion of the Western Hills and the future chief of the Dragma tribe. Does anyone dare challenge me? Having had enough of the loudmouth, Sean ignored him and walked over to Leo. He was still holding the injured girl. The young man asked gently, How is she? Is she okay? Leo replied. I put a splint on her arm. But it doesn't seem to be helping much. He had asked the shaman for help, but she didn't have the strength left to heal. Sean nodded. I can help. I have experience with treating broken bones. The lion-like man thanked him gratefully for his help, and then he asked for his name. The young man introduced himself. My name is Sean Kafar. I am the chief of Kafar.
Sean then bandaged her arm with expert precision, applying a new splint. The lad was clearly grateful for the favor. He called Sean a liberator. The young man just smiled and said, "You can just call me Leo." Leo then asked, "Is it true you were once a sailor? I would love to hear your adventure stories sometime." Sean chuckled. "I'll tell you all about them over a drink when we get out of here." Sean then gestured with his head. Can you hear that? Red, of course, was still shouting at the top of his lungs. He declared that these lands would belong to him, and that his name would be praised like a god's. Virga finally told him to shut his mouth. Virga pointed a finger upward. "Everyone, look." All eyes turned toward the sky. There was a huge, colorful butterfly flying overhead. It was of an incredible size. Leo looked at it in awe and whispered, "Wow." Meanwhile, back at the dead Heibling on the cliff, its torso was damaged. Suddenly, a gray-skinned arm burst out from its torso. With a cry, someone climbed out of the Hang's body. "There must be something in here I can use," he said. The man found someone's bag with something glowing inside. The guy got excited and shouted, "Bingo!" He was a young man who looked almost exactly like Leo. Someone called out to him, "Still stealing, are we?" The guy spun around to see who it was. "Who's there?" he asked. Herm was sitting casually on the dead Hang. He said hello to the young man, staring him down with a smirk. He stared at the man and asked, "Are you Lion?" The so-called Lion smirked back. Well, Herm finally decided to grace us with your presence." Herm retorted that Lion had certainly been making a scene lately. Lev just nodded, adding that his scenes were the only reason they were still breathing. "I don't steal. I just hate being idle," Lev argued. Herm shot back, "So your solution was to put me to sleep?" "Pretty much," Lev admitted. "Needed you out of the way. We've got work to do." Herm sighed. "I know. After all, they shared the same memories." "If you know everything," Lev challenged, "then why are you complaining?" "Because," Herm stated flatly, "you are a danger to everyone around you," Lev scoffed. "What are you talking about? Did you forget how we even got to this point? A butterfly with massive claws fluttered between the rocks. Yeah, apparently even the insects here are predators." Virgo pointed deeper into the cave. The lion followed his gaze, seeing a swarm of enormous shell beasts crawling toward them. The lion roared, "We've got company! Everyone, group up now!" They began to shove the massive carcass of the dead monster toward the cliff. The plan was disgusting, but it was their only shot at survival. The few remaining warriors pushed the corpse to the very edge as the living monsters closed in. With a final heave, the dead beast tumbled off the cliff, with all the warriors clinging to it for dear life. The creatures were too late. Hay and Virga held on tight to a flying insect's shell, a makeshift parachute to soften their insane descent. "I remember," Lev said quietly. Herm pressed on. "They didn't question you. They just did it, because they trusted you and your ridiculous plan," the lion replied. "They knew I'd make the right call. It's not like we had any other options." "No," Herm corrected. "They followed you out of pure faith. Even Virga believed in you. They know what you're capable of. And that's exactly what makes you so dangerous." Lev stared at Herm, baffled. "What are you trying to say?" "If you think I'm so dangerous," Lev challenged, "what do you propose we do?" Herm had access to all his memories. He knew what was at stake. "Without me," Lev stated, "our people have no future beyond these cave walls." Herm's reply was blunt. "For now, just get us out of here alive. It's better if you abandon the rest of your grand plans." But the lion wasn't having it. "The Greyborn need to become strong. They need to stand on their own 2 feet, or they'll be wiped out. They have to learn to control their own destiny, or they'll be someone's slave forever." The lion's eyes hardened. "I may not have been born a chun. Scarecrow, but I'll die as one. And I have no intention of dying a slave. If you don't like it, feel free to go back to sleep." Suddenly, a scream echoed from nearby. The lion paused. "Someone's over there?" He raised the crystal, casting its light toward the sound. It was coming from inside the monster's corpse. And there, tangled inside, the young man found the girl. Rafa was just starting to stir. As he worked to free her, Herm asked, "Is she hurt?" "She's no worse than before," Lev noted. "Still drugged up?" The creature's carcass cushioned the impact. Lev looked around. "Why is it just us two? Where did everyone else go?" Shadows of their comrades appeared. He pulled Rafa out and leaned her against the wall, still unconscious. The lion announced, "I found some food and water in the other packs, though not much." There were no other signs of life in the immediate area. Herm was worried. "Where did they all go?" The lion pointed out 2 paths leading away from them, both riddled with deep pits. "You can go that way or this way. There are tracks leading in both directions."
Herm wondered aloud. Why would they split up? The lion just shrugged. No idea, but either way, we have to choose a path. Lev tried to wake the unconscious girl, Herm guessed. Maybe they split up to scout the area. They should be back soon. Then we should probably wait here. Do you hear that? Lev asked suddenly. Herm listened. I don't hear anything. Where are you? Going? The lion whispered a name. Maria. Maria. It's you. Herm ran to catch up. Lev, what are you doing?
I'm going after Maria. Wait for me here. Herm grabbed his arm. It's a trap, you fool. You can't go. But Lev insisted he had to.
He wasn't changing his mind. This part of him was dangerous. He remembered slitting a man's throat, just as the priestess had foretold. He would be known as the Lion, the Liberator. He saw himself standing on burning barricades, waiting for his enemies. He remembered executing a rival by slicing off his head. A dark thought emerged. He could end this right here. If he let this part of him go, they'd all be free. He recalled hugging Gorza, promising to always be her brother. He remembered ordering drinks for his men, telling them they'd earned it. He remembered promising them all a better world. But Herm decided it was all a lie. He couldn't be trusted. The vision of Maria called out, Lion, come with me. Follow me, Lev asked. Where's Brutus? Maria smiled. Brutus is waiting for us. We can all finally be together. You don't have to fight. Anymore. Leonard repeated the words. No more fighting. Maria hugged him tightly. You made it. It's all over now. They brought you back to me, she whispered. It's time to rest. But Lev hesitated. What about the scarecrows? They need me. That she and Brutus need him. That they are his true family, not the others. Maria cooed. Look, Brutus is waiting for us. Brutus's voice called out for Leo. He asked what was taking so long. Leo drifted forward, walking hesitantly behind Maria. She smiled, saying how happy she was. She had missed him so much. Just a little longer, she promised, and they would all be together again. Together, Leo repeated, the word feeling hollow. Utter confusion washed over him. In a flash, Herm appeared between him and Maria, and in that same instant, a fist slammed into Leo's face. A solid right hook. Wake up! Herm roared, trying to shock the young man back to his senses. Leo stared blankly at Herms, and then at Maria. The fog in his mind finally began to clear. We need you, Leo, the illusion pleaded. He squeezed his eyes shut. This is all just a dream. Get out. Get out of my head. As he yelled, Maria's form twisted and warped into something monstrous. Leo gasped, fully snapping back to reality. He looked at Herm. It's time to go. The lion stood tall, now clad in his protective helmet. It all made sense now. He finally understood why the Hings never followed them here. They're terrified of whatever that thing is. So, where are we heading now? Herm asked. The lion's gaze was firm. Away from here. As far away as possible. Maybe we can find Virga and the others. Herm raised an eyebrow. Why Virga specifically? Leo replied. That thing uses the people closest to you to create its illusions. To lure you in. Now, think, who is Virga closest to? A look of dawning horror crossed Herm's face. He understood completely. The lion called out to Herm, looking him dead in the eye. What is it? Herm asked. Leo's voice was low and serious. Thank you for believing in me back there. Herm just grunted. We have to watch each other's backs. The lion continued. From now on, if I start acting strangely, you tell me. You keep an eye on me, and I'll do the same for you. The two men clasped hands. It was a firm, unbreakable promise. A warrior's handshake. All right, Leo said, his focus returning. Let's find out where the others disappeared to. Carrying Rafa on his back, he marched down one of the paths. Hours later, the lion stopped for a break. He stared at his tired reflection in a pool of water. So much time had passed. But they still hadn't found a single soul. Was he going the wrong way? Or had the others, perhaps, already gotten out? Meanwhile, Virga, Hamal, and Rock were having that exact discussion. Vero explained. The ancients left behind several shrines. They work like portals. If you enter a shrine, you can travel to another one on a different level. Rock scoffed. Then what's the point of these dangerous expeditions? The shrines can only teleport a few people at a time, Vero clarified. And after they're used, you have to wait for them to reactivate. On top of that, the shrines on the first 3 levels were all destroyed by the Jira, long before anyone understood how to use them, Rock grumbled. So they didn't even know what they were breaking, Virga added. It seems the nobility kept their existence a secret. A private escape route, just in case one of their precious expeditions went wrong. Virga nodded grimly. That's exactly right. If someone gets stuck on a level, Their best chance of escape is to find one of these hidden shrines. Back near the lake, Leo spotted a glowing crystal next to the water. If the others had teleported, had they taken their food supplies? Just then, Rafa began to wake up. She called out Leo's name weakly. Where are we? He told her gently. Don't make any sudden movements. You haven't recovered yet. The young man admitted, we're on the lower levels. In truth, he had no idea where they were exactly, not after the chaos of that hang attack. The girl's gaze fell on a container of water. I'm so thirsty, she whispered. The lion nodded. I know, but there's one problem. The water in the nearby pool was crystal clear, almost impossibly so. It looked so inviting he desperately wanted to drink it. I'm not sure if this water is safe, Leo warned. Down here, anything can be a trap. Changing the subject, he asked. How's your arm? Does it hurt? It was only a temporary bandage, the girl replied. It's numb.
When Sean wrapped it, Leo recalled, he used some special herbs on the wound. They should be dulling the pain. We'll just have to hold on until we can find a healer. At the mention of a healer, the girl began to cry. Bogu, he would never spend money to cure me.
If I'm lucky, he'll just throw me in the heron pit. It would be better for you, she sobbed. If you just left me here to die.
Stop that kind of talk, Leo said, his voice firm. I will absolutely find a healer for you. And if Bogu doesn't want to pay,
I'll spend my own credits to cover the treatment. Either way, you're going to be fine. The girl looked up at Leo, a glimmer of hope in her tear-filled eyes. He wasn't joking. His expression was completely serious. Looking at Rafa, he knew he had to keep this promise. But she could hardly believe it. Why would it be so easy for a complete stranger to help her to spend his own merits on her? Rafa suddenly declared, If you do this, I will do anything you ask. I will even marry you. Leo was completely stunned by her words. She had spoken with such raw, desperate emotion. He finally managed to ask, Is that a proposal or a threat? For some reason, this made Rafa flush with anger. But the deep blush on her cheeks revealed just how flustered she really was. Leo thought to himself, Wow, she's dead serious.
A life for a life, Rafa insisted. It is the tradition of my people. Leo looked at his companion, trying to understand what she was truly offering.
He took a breath. All right, I'll accept your life. The lion continued. However, I have no need for a wife.
Or a slave. What I need is your intelligence, your knowledge, and your unwavering loyalty to me. Can you give me those things?
The girl stared in disbelief. You really want me to be your confidant? A comrade in battle, Leo replied simply. That is my goal. Do you agree, model? Tears streamed down her face, reflecting the light of the crystal as they fell. The girl was a total mess. She just couldn't calm down. No one had ever spoken to her with such kindness before Lev had no idea what to do. He just wanted to make his travel buddy feel better, but his social skills were clearly failing. Meanwhile, Rafa couldn't take it anymore and chugged the water from the vat. The thirst was just too real. The young man yelled at her to stop, asking what on earth she was doing. That water could be poison. Rafa just slammed the vat on the ground. What's done is done. The girl then made a solemn vow to him, right there before the gods. She promised to serve him faithfully, and if she dies well, it would be in his service. Lev stared at her, his eyes wide in disbelief. He definitely hadn't expected this level of drama, but she was dead serious. So the guy grabbed a container and did the exact same thing. He drank the mystery water. Now it was Rafa's turn to yell at him to stop. Why was he being so reckless? The young man finished the last drop, turned the vat upside down, and declared it his vow. If they're going to die, they'll die on the very same day. They stared into each other's eyes, the glowing crystal casting a dramatic light between them. The girl sat in silence, her cheeks completely on fire. She couldn't help but think this felt a lot like a wedding ceremony. Lev noticed her face turning 50 shades of red and called out her name, snapping her out of it. He asked how she was feeling, wondering what was wrong with her this time. Was it the water? The girl stammered a bit, insisting she was fine, just lost in thought. The young man figured the water wasn't poisoned then, which meant they could stock up for the journey. With that settled, it was time to move. Rafa asked where they were headed next. Did he even have a map? The guy said he'd try to find the thieves who stole their food. Maybe they'd find some help along the way. He then added with a scowl, And if we don't, we'll get revenge. The two walked along the shore of the shimmering lake, where another glowing crystal rested on the bottom. Suddenly, they stopped dead in their tracks. In front of them was a dead goblin, clutching something in his hand.
lying in a pool of his own blood.
Well, that's not something you see every day. Lev crouched down to get a better look at the body.
He muttered that it looked like they weren't alone out here. Rafa nervously asked what could have possibly happened.
Lev admitted he didn't know yet, but he was going to find out. His gaze scanned the area, landing on a peculiar stone nearby. It was covered in some kind of hieroglyphics that he couldn't make sense of.
Still, he decided to investigate. There were 3 distinct symbols. He had to figure out what they meant.
Lev announced he would decipher what happened here, adding that when he gave the signal, the girl needed to jump aside instantly. Just then, a drop of dark goo splattered right next to her ear. Her eyes widened in terror as she asked in a shaky whisper, "Lev, what's above us?" They both froze, not daring to look up. From the darkness above, 2 monstrous eyes glared down at them. Lev repeated his command. "On my signal, jump sideways." The young man braced himself, ready to push the girl to safety. A massive rumble shook the cavern as something huge crashed down from the ceiling, sending stone shards everywhere. The girl screamed. "What was that?" Lev squinted through the dust and guessed, "I think it might be Drog, son of milk."
When the dust finally settled, they saw Drog squatting right where they had been standing.
Lev corrected himself. This wasn't Drog. It was what was left of him. The warrior had black pits for eyes, gushing blood. Drog spoke in a horrifying voice. "You called for me, but I did not come," the voice continued. "They were offering me perfection." Suddenly, terrifying thorns sprouted from Drog's back. It was a seriously gruesome sight. He kept telling the young man to join them. Drog then grew to an unbelievable size, Rafa asked.
"Was he always this big?" Lev replied grimly.
"That creature did this to him." Drog stood up and lumbered towards them. Rafa grabbed Lev's hand, absolutely, terrified, and begged him to run. But the boy stood his ground, declaring, "I don't run from danger, and I'm not. Starting now." Seeing his stubborn determination, she yelled, "You're insane!" Drog continued his slow advance, telling Lev to join them and find true tranquility. But suddenly, something else fell from above, landing right on top of the monster. Lev grabbed the girl and yelled, "Okay, now we run urgently." Rafa screamed, "What is happening?" In that instant, the pile of firewood on Drog's back ignited, and the fire consumed his entire body. He was like a giant, screaming torch, flailing his arms and legs as the flames devoured him. After getting to a safe distance, they stopped to watch the horrifying bonfire burn out. The girl asked how Lev knew what was going to happen. He explained that when he was checking the goblin's body, he saw a hunter's scarecrow sign nearby. That meant an ambush. So he purposely stood still, so the ambushers wouldn't miss their target. Just then, Virga and his crew stepped out from the shadows. The warrior smirked. "You made a wonderful bait, kid," Virga then mused aloud. "Though I did wonder if leaving that sign was maybe a little too obvious." Virga had to admit, it was a smart move. He almost missed when fighting monsters was an actual challenge. Their weakness to fire gave them a huge advantage. Lev asked, "Are there more of them?" Virga confirmed that was the last one. "The moment we hit the bottom of the abyss, we were ambushed," Virga explained. "We were running for our lives until we finally learned how to fight these things." Lev sarcastically thanked them for leaving him behind, but Virga shot back, saying they had no idea where the lion even was, calling it a sound strategic retreat. Lev smirked. "Oh, I have no doubt that's what it was." He wasn't buying it for a second. Virga remained completely unfazed. Then, Lev's eyes locked onto a familiar bag in Hem's hand. "Hey, that's mine," Hem agreed, but added that it was missing a few items. A couple of flasks, to be exact. The young man peeked into his satchel. "Well," he sighed, "I trust they went to a worthy cause." Hem awkwardly stated they were really glad to have found him. Lev replied, "You don't sound very convincing. It's probably just because I'm still alive." He then asked what happened. Hem and Virga exchanged a heavy, silent look, and right then, the lion realized something had definitely gone down. The young men glanced around, noticing strange images covering the walls. The shaman explained they found this place while searching for the shrine. "This is absolutely amazing," Rafa declared. She looked around in total shock. She never expected to find a place like this down here. Rafa noticed there were countless rock paintings. The drawings depicted the Greyboar clan riding Helblings and battling goblins. The shaman admitted it surprised her as well. Greyboars and Helblings fighting together against goblins? How was that even possible? Chance mused that art takes many forms. Perhaps these are just someone's wild dreams. The lion asked Hegel if they had found the sanctuary. The warrior replied that they didn't know. It seemed many more mysteries lay ahead. Hem then pointed Lev toward the wall drawings. He said they were hoping the young man could help decipher them. Suddenly, a set of huge golden doors appeared before the warriors. They led into another room. Lev and Rafa were completely amazed by the sight. The young man asked if they had studied the doors. Virga said they looked all around, but couldn't get them open. There must be some kind of opening mechanism, he muttered. The lion stared intently at the structure as an idea sparked in his mind. The boy touched the doors with his fingertips, and suddenly, he found himself plunged into darkness. He couldn't understand where he was. What is this place? Then, a huge giant with glowing eyes appeared before the young man. Leonard Aon Vandersteen, its voice boomed. I have been waiting for you. Meanwhile, the other expedition continued its journey. A massive gray boar carried a chair where their leader, Bulu, was lounging. The warriors remained heavily armed. The area was bathed in a strange light. The warriors marched in tense silence, their faces focused. The expedition was moving steadily towards its goal. One of the goblins was gulping down the last of the water from a container. Someone shouted at him to leave some for others. The goblins started bickering amongst themselves. You drank it all. That was the last flask of water, the other. Suggested he go borrow some from the boss. The goblin retorted that the boss was to blame for everything. There's a shrine on every level. Why do we have to walk back on foot? His companion contradicted him. If you were Bulu, would you want to return to your father empty-handed? We need to collect as many glowing crystals as possible. The goblin was starving. He asked if the boss could use the shrine to get them food. It's his fault we were left without supplies during the attack. His friend sighed, saying they were back to the point that Bulu needs money to pay his debts when he returns home. The boss doesn't care what happens to us, he grumbled. Otherwise, he would have provided us with water and cooking oil a long time ago. The goblin wondered if the gray boars still had supplies. His companion said that at least some of them must. The goblins watched the gray boars eat their food with envy. They decided their own lives were far more important than the lives of some gray boars. The boss needs us, the goblins rationalized. The gray boars will just die without us anyway. The two goblins wept and begged for forgiveness. We won't do it again, they cried. We only said those things out of hunger. We didn't mean any of it. Volker warned Rock that he should let them go. If the other goblins found out, they could all be in serious trouble. One of the goblins chimed in. Yeah, let us go, or you'll be the one in trouble. The goblin seemed to like that argument. Rock thought for a moment and released the young men. He didn't want any more trouble. He took the goblin's amulets away first. You can't use magic without these, he said. If you behave in the future, maybe I'll give them back to you. The warrior looked threateningly at the goblins. They had completely lost the will to argue with. This commander of the Grey Boar, Rock let the goblins go, then turned to Volker. I came to agree to your offer, he stated. Volker replied that they could not join Rock's unit. This is my final decision. Rock argued that even their own supplies were running low, and the other squads had long since run out. Now is not the time to be a lone hero, but Volker repeated. We have to wait. We have our commander. Rock's expression shifted. I want him back, too, he said softly. But he gave his life to save me. Just as Lion gave his life to save him, Volker prayed their sacrifice would not be in vain, lowering his eyes in shame. But his mind was unchanged. Ruck declared it was Volker's own choice, warning him not to forget Verge's men were after supplies too. Volker shot back that Oswald was in charge now, and he'd never let that happen. Ruck, already turning away, simply said, Let's hope you're right. The young men watched Ruck depart. They had refused his offer, choosing to wait for their true commander. They held on to the hope of seeing the lion again. The expedition marched on, but each step became a struggle. Supplies dwindled, and water became scarce. The warrior girl stopped, a new resolve hardening in her eyes. With a firm goodbye to her comrades, she broke away from the group, choosing to forge her own path. She trekked across the desolate fields, alone. At last, she spotted a lone figure sitting on a rock. It was Volker. As she approached, he asked without even turning, How was the patrol? We saw more deserters than hostiles, she replied flatly. Volker sighed, admitting he wished he could run away too. But that's not an option now, he muttered. The girl challenged him. And what would the lion say to that? Volker scoffed, claiming Lev would have understood. After all, Lev always preached about acting reasonably. She reminded him that Lev made him his right hand for a reason. He needed to trust in that, and in himself. Jem has way more experience than I do, Volker mumbled quietly. But the girl insisted his people believed in him. She'd heard them talking. People trust you, Volker, she said. That's why our squad has no deserters, he countered bitterly. We have no deserters because we have more supplies.
Once those run out, he said, they'll be gone too. The girl's voice grew sad. Then it would just be the two of us.
Her words hit him. Volker snapped back to his senses and apologized to Vera, saying he didn't mean to offend her. Vera pleaded with him not to give up on something he'd regret later. The young man finally agreed, calling himself a spineless slug. He confessed he was trying to get his head straight, but it was incredibly difficult. The girl shared some wisdom. My commander always said to focus on what you can control. If something's out of your hands, don't waste your energy on it. Volker admitted her commander sounded smart. She smiled. He is, when he isn't drunk, which is rare. Volker then noticed what she was holding. Vera explained that he looked so miserable. So she brought him a flower. He took the small blossom, and his entire face lit up with pure joy. He couldn't believe it. The simple gift completely overwhelmed him. In a sudden burst of emotion, Volker pulled the girl into a hug, thanking her profusely. He held Vera tightly, repeating, "Thank you so much." The girl froze, totally bewildered by his explosive reaction. Volker let go, turned, and practically sprinted away, still shouting his thanks like a shy kid. She whispered to the empty air, "You're welcome," her cheeks burning red from the sudden rush of emotions. Moments later, a re-energized Volker gathered his squad. He had an announcement. He held up the seeds from the flower he'd received as a gift. "I need you to find more of these," he declared. Jem immediately protested that they were on duty and needed to hunt. The ghoul chimed in, agreeing with Jem. They couldn't go on a seed hunt, they had to set up camp. "There has to be a way," Volker pleaded. Vera suggested they ask the other squads for help, appealing to their solidarity. The girl wondered aloud if maybe the others just wouldn't want to help. Jem corrected her. "It's not about wanting to. Nobody is going to help us for free," he stated bluntly. Volker insisted they had to do it, whatever the cost. Jem spelled it out for him. The price for their help will be our supplies, and we barely have any left. Volker made a startling declaration. "We don't have enough to get home anyway, so we have to ask the other leaders for help." Jem sighed, resigning to his fate. "You're the boss now, Volker. It's your call." The warriors stopped near the corpse of a dead creature. They decided to take a short break. The ghoul wandered off to carve something out of wood, hiding his work from view. Suddenly, Jem pointed toward something in the distance. A couple of youths were sneakily carrying a cooking pot away from the main camp. Soon after, the young men had a fire going with the borrowed pot sitting on top. Volker looked proud. "I think it's ready," he announced. "Jem, pass the salt." Everyone stared, intrigued. Jem handed over the salt, saying with a smirk, "Careful, it's really heavy. Don't drop it." Suddenly, the girl yelled out, "What are you doing, Chen?" as Volker dumped the entire bag of precious salt into the cauldron. Volker explained that when he was a kid, his mom saved salt. Whenever they had extra, she'd put it aside for Zia's day. On that day, she'd pull out all her stockpiled goods and cook them in a giant pan. He continued, saying that as the pan heated up, his mom would add seeds and small bits of dough, cooking the food directly on the salt. The seeds would heat up, swell, pop, and become popcorn. And soon, a strange new food appeared before them. The children devoured it with glee, loving every bite. Volker scooped up a handful, offering the popcorn to the young woman. Var tasted it, and her eyes went wide with shock. It was amazing. She'd never eaten anything like it in her life as Volker's squad happily munched away. A voice called out to him. Ghoul joked that he'd probably need to cook a whole lot more. Volker turned, only to see a legion of hungry warriors staring at them with longing eyes. He just smirked and said, "That's why I told you to bring extra." Volker then shared his popcorn-making secret, and soon, all the warriors were cooking the seeds over the fire. Later, Volker found Var and thanked her. He was genuinely grateful, but she was confused. She insisted she hadn't really done anything. Volker explained that she reminded him to stay grounded, to be realistic. He was afraid to take that first step, but she gave him the push he needed. The girl beamed, pleased to hear such words from him, and thanked him in return. Just then, a warrior approached them, breaking the moment. "Am I interrupting something?" Volker looked up to see Ruck. He was congratulating the young man, admitting that thanks to him, they now had plenty of food. Volker corrected him, saying it wasn't a feast, but it was a clever way to cook seeds and other foods without oil or water. This simple method could be the key to getting them all home alive. Ruck admitted that Lev was right to choose Volker, despite the praise. Volker said plainly that he didn't like Ruck, and he certainly didn't trust him. But today reminded him that some things just can't be done alone. The two rivals shook hands, deciding that allies should join forces until they make it home. It was a truce born of pure necessity. But suddenly, a warrior came sprinting towards them, yelling for his boss that something had happened. The boss demanded to know what was wrong. Ruck looked surprised, wondering what else could possibly go wrong now. Why was this man in such a panic? The warrior leaned in and began to whisper frantically into Ruck's ear. Volker knew this couldn't be good. Ruck's face hardened. He turned away, saying, "Looks like we made a Nanchi
alliance just in time." He revealed that Hema had launched a sneak attack and killed Oswald. It was pure sabotage. A chilling thought hit Volker.
That means we could be next. Well, my friends, I don't know about you, but I am hooked on this manhwa. The plot itself is just so interesting and full of suspense. So if you're enjoying the ride, smash that subscribe button and drop a comment about what